And we are live here on Grindhouse, Twitch, Dispersion versus Echoes. Echoes on the serve, Dispersion on the killer. I'm your host, Gore Majima Def Jukis, here with Nugs. How you doing, Nugs?
I am doing fantastic this evening, and I am excited for this matchup as well. We see a very interesting build that Besk is bringing on the Slinger with Dragon's Grip, a very unique perk choice, Agi Pain Res to get those Pain Reses better, and maybe even those basement hooks, and our good old Corrupt Intervention. What do you think of this build, Jukies?
I love the cooking. Honestly, I'm a big fan of cooking, and honestly, I would think that Echoes might be a fan of stealthing a little bit better going forward. But however, the Slinger does his shot immediately, and I think that comes where his add-on choice comes into play here. He's running Cigar and Warden's Keys, and also a special whiff mechanic that he's utilizing here. But I'm a big fan of trying something different. I think that the issue with this build is that I think he's going to get a little impatient with some of his shots and also how he plays. But that's where Agi comes into play here, is that he's going to take the Nancy around the rock a couple times. Then Nancy will go down, and there's going to be a pain res hook right here. Now, I think what it is that Dragon's Grip is meant to give more value than pop. So instead of getting the gen regression, I think what the plan is to kick a gen, as you can see, the 10% coming into play, and to make it so there's a down instead of regression.
Yeah, I do see the vision there with that cooking, especially with Slinger being a long-range killer. Getting that exposed down would be like very helpful in terms of turning the tide of a game. We see a whiff onto Moonlight, and we're just gonna reload, apply our first Dragon Script of the game, and slowly make our rotation back towards the hook as we see a bottom side generator pop. We see someone rotate for the unhook, and also Meg screams, so Moonlight is currently exposed, but Best does not care about that. He wants his tunnel out onto Creepy, our Nancy here. Piao here for the body block and successfully takes it. Now, gonna have to mend in order to work some generators, but continuing our tunnel out onto Creepy as we take the chase to Buzz.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with the add-on choice for this reason. A lot of people like that cigar so that they can get those nasty unhook situations. But it looks like Beskir is playing a little bit looser than they should with the unhooks. But also, I don't know if the tunnel out is worth it, but they do finally get a shot onto Nancy. And I understand that desync is a thing at the moment, so I'm not trying to shade the Slinger or give any Slinger shade when I say that some of these shots are going to be a lot more difficult with the current patch. But like I said, I don't necessarily agree with the add-on choice because if they're not going to play around hooks, Cigar is pretty much a placebo effect. In lots of ways, I would say that either double reload, prison chain, or even the mangled add-on could be a better option here. But also the thing about Slinger is that since they boosted the base kit reload and also how fast Slinger moves when they reload, I think that it's a bit of a gamble to run Warden's Keys unless I think you're running double reload. But I can see the gen has popped and Claudette has ran around to the bottom side, and it looks like it's gonna be a full camp out until they miss that shot.
That is pretty huge, and they get the For the People off as well. Now, Moonlight not going to be taking it down, just and a whiff as well. That's an insane whiff to be whiffing. But our tag onto Creepy does happen. Still going to be committing to this tunnel out. And I personally think that this turned the tide quite a bit to have this tunnel out take even longer. New. Is this a new tile? Hold on. I've never seen this tile before, me personally. I think this is a new Auto Haven tile through the mid chapter patch, and gonna be hitting a nice shot onto Creepy. Third gen pops, and that will be our tunnel out secured.
Yeah, I see right there with that shot is that it's a bit of a desync. It looked like the creepy was around the corner of the tile on our screen. But unfortunately, I think that the spectator looks a little different than what we're seeing on the screen from the killer and the serve POV. Or it could be that we're seeing the serve POV instead of the killer POV. Either way, it's a bit of an interesting visual effect. And so now what we're seeing is the tunnel out there, the Meg is down, and there's 3 gens left. And this is where Slinger becomes very deadly on this map. I think that the biggest issue with slamming the gens the way they did against Agi and Painrez is now they put themselves in sort of a 3-gen scenario. And I don't know if this is gonna end with a 4K all or a 2K6. We'll have to see.
Well, with that pain res onto Moonlight, now there was a gen that lost 20% of its progress. And, like, another thing to consider as well is that the entire bit of the tunnel out onto Creepy was taken topside where these 3 gens are located. So that's gonna be a little bit rougher to have some form of safe leaves onto these survivors here, but we see Besk miss a couple shots, do a little swing of rage cutely, and now we're just going to be camping Moonlight 2 second while pressuring these gens here.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think this is where the oil can comes into play as a missed add-on, and it does help secure these sorts of camping situations. But like I said, I do think that the desync is something that's very rampant right now as DVD ramps up for 2v8. Can't help but wonder if they're putting us on a playtest for the same servers that we all raged about. Maybe want to hit the top of Fun Bus as well. But now we have Claudette here taking a tag, and the one-time cigar value might come into play. Ends up being sort of a semi-throw, but not particularly, as the ace plays Fun Bus. And there goes Meg running away, and Besk understanding that this could be the turning point of the match. And it just makes you think that they understand the pressure. And Ace getting hit all the way at the tile, getting reeled in and understanding what's going to happen here. And it just looks like that second win saved Moonlight's ass.
Yep, taking 2 injuries for that unhook. Oh, maybe even another down here. We'll see if Bozo does go down, and they do. Now, we had 2 shots land in, so it's still 2 injuries, and it's practically back to the same scenario, but with an extra injury onto Ace. Gonna be a little bit rough on the survivors, starting to look like a 4K1 as this third pain res happens. Onto 10. Now we're gonna be reloading and looking for perhaps a reset, as Piao does get reset, and we saw where Moonlight was last seen. So we're going to be checking the bottom area here, looking for potentially a cross, as we do find Moonlight at the car pile, likely where the reset was held, and another injury is going to be happening. Best playing this really well, making sure that these survivors are very pressured. Piao going to be getting the unhook, not going to be committing to this chase, instead perhaps getting another tunnel out maybe onto Bozo here. And that looks like the case here. We're going to be seeing the chase continued onto Bozo, letting Piao do his thing, and scratch marks at the hill indicating that Piao is there, likely with balance because it is a hill generator after all, and a free tag is going to ensue. Now, stuck in the corner, not sure if that was an instance of lag, but it is very unfortunate. Now, gonna be slugging this, and now he has so much pressure here, looking like a 4K1.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going on there. And I think that it could have been a mispathing, and they realized it a little bit too late. Or they're trying to buy time for the reset, as it looks like that might have also been in play as well. But I guess that my concern in this scenario is that Besk has to commit to somebody at some point. And with the desync affecting their confidence in the shots, it just doesn't look like they're landing as many as they feel they should. And I don't know if extending for this is the play, as Piao is already up now. And it's looking like if Moonlight doesn't dodge this shot, it's gonna be a down. And it is a down, and there's our next kill. But I think Besk was thinking for a second to maybe try and slug. So, Nugs, what do you want to see out of this ensuing 2v1 now?
Now, Piao was picked up roughly 15 seconds ago, so there's not a lot of gen progress at all, as we saw the most recent gen progress before committing to Moonlight's chase. So I personally believe this is going to be a 4K1 unless one of these survivors has an insane chase that Best commits to for way too long. So it's really rough here, looking around the edge maps, trying to find anyone's stealth Dragon Script active so we know if anyone taps the gen. And we do see a
We do see a
area.
survivor over there.
Now,
And then we have Bozo running around. Getting the shot, again, the desync is a little bit jarring on the eyes. And so what we're seeing now is that it's going to be the game of trying to find the other survivor, which unfortunately is already found. Cal's already found right here in Shack. Besk missed a shot that could have been an easy down. And again, like I said, I really do believe the desync is affecting us a lot right now with this patch, but at least we are gone past the days of Peepo Shake spectator mode. So I think this is looking like Besk is going to have to commit to somebody and just go and take the kill. But if they're paying attention to Freshes, they should have committed to Piao. I believe Piao is their last fresh hook.
yes, you would be correct there. Bozo is on their first hook. Piao is the fresh hook survivor here, and we still see Piao over at 7 trying to stealth a little bit. Now, Bozo has some time to do some gens. Piao has to play a really good chase here. So, the final pain res does not happen, because if the final pain res happens, it's practically guaranteed a 4K1 now. Besk very much committing this chase. Claude could have that Deja Resi combo coming through. A 7% happens though as the pre-leave occurs. Very unfortunate for Bozo and Echo's team in general here. I'm gonna be holding that shot right onto Claude, making sure that those 50s are played and pressured away from the window gym. The down happens, and now slugging for that 4K.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree necessarily with this slug situation just because of them being on hook. They have Agi, so they could take it all the way straight over to that gen and force the hatch play. But I mean, at the end of the day, it is looking like not all gens are gonna get done unless, yeah, it doesn't look like all gens are gonna get done here. It just looks like right here is that what Besk is doing is giving them an opportunity to pick up the slug and prolong the game. I don't necessarily agree with this play, but I do understand their mindset. I think that the issue is that when more slugs on the ground, people tend to play a little bit looser, but then the opposite is true, is that survivors can afford to stealth a little bit more and rotate in. So now it's becoming a scavenger hunt for Ace, and I'm really impressed of what Dragon's Grip did. It did make a number of healthy survivors afraid to touch the gens, but also too helped guarantee at least 30 seconds of regression on a generator until someone who is unhealthy touched the gen. So I do like this build. I do think that it played a little bit into Echo's head here.
Yeah, definitely. That dragon script definitely made their survivors quite scared to do generators after a kick happened. So now with that though, we're still trying to find Piao, who is likely in this like bottom left side area of the map. Gonna be checking the 9 edge here, deep into the 9 corner. Best believes he saw something, but after rechecking, might be a little schizo, giving those nopers. Now, Boso's halfway through the bleed out timer. They might just not pick up at all and wait for the bleed out to have a hatch. I lied. So, we're going to be hooking Bozo on this hill here. And with Piao being injured, Best can just pressure this from the top mid, being able to see the 10 generator, see the Shack generator, see the 1 generator, and be close enough to Shack where Piao just can't get hatch at all.
Yeah, even with the new 70-second timer, I do think it's going to be a little bit of a risk here for Best to sit on, wait, and camp these gens, and that's why I said I think that the play might have been to try and find a better hook position, but I think at the same time, Bozo is just ready to go to the next match, so it looks like that it's going to be 4 gens done, and regardless of whether this is a 3k9 with 1 gen remaining, I'm
Right?
wondering what Besk is waiting for now.
Probably waiting for Piao to try and make a move, likely at one of the exit gates, ready to pull that switch, try and make it a 3k9, so popping 4 gens does still give their team a win. But Besk has an amazing view for these 2 gates. It's just impossible for Piao to get out here, and he is very much accepting his fate. Gonna be going down, and that is a 4k at 1 generator.
Yeah, I think it's difficult because I think Echo's had a really good start in terms of getting the gens done, but one of the things about taking chase and that people do like to use resources and take body blocks, it makes it difficult when the gens are right there that need to get done, but also too when they accidentally 3-gen themselves because they get convinced that those chases will continue to happen. But that's the thing about Dead by Daylight is that the maps have resources and some of those resources are not permanent. So very well played by Best, very well played by Echoes, and we'll be right back after this break.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Set 1 Game 2 of Grindhouse's Week 17 Scrims. Our last match resulted in a 4k1, so our survivors on Dispersion here are just going to simply need to pop all 5 gens for our win condition. And we see a nice build here, quite standard. Jukies, what do you think?
Well, I think we were just talking about it in the early part of this when we were taking our break, looking at builds, and Bozo here taking a tag on to the Ace here in the Shallow 9 area, and Ace is happy to go and take him to the dump truck area. So before we get into the specifics of what needs to be done for the 4K2, the add-on combo is actually interesting. It's double stun reduction. So what most people do is that they run Cigar and they run Warden's Keys. Warden's Keys gives a reload. But I believe I'm looking at there, I believe the Tobacco Can is actually a double stun reduction. So if the chain gets broken at any point, it will be significantly shorter. And I think that one thing that's significantly shorter here is Bozo's attention span to this chase. They're realizing that chase is being taken away from the active gens in the corrupt area, and they're kind of having a crisis of conscience here, trying to figure out how they should play this. So, Nugs, what do you think that needs to be the win, or what do you think that Echoes needs to do to get that 4K2?
To get a 4k2 is pretty tough. We see like a good amount of regression here compared to last game to try and get that 4k2. A high progress gen at bus already. And these chases also need to come in quick. These regression perks come in through downs and through hooks. Eruption, you kick a gen down someone, that's an extra 10% gone. Pain res, you hook someone, a unique person at a time, 20% of the highest gen is gone. So quick downs, quick chases, just quick, in order to get that 4k2. Would you agree with this, Jukies?
I would agree with it, but I don't agree with the perk choices. I think that the issue I'm seeing here is that they're expecting for chases to go short, and I think that part of the issue is that when people don't play perfect in these scenarios, as I mentioned here, but actually Bozo here getting a very good tag, as you can see also how quick that stun duration is with both of those add-ons. Unless Dispersion messes up big time, I think the biggest concern I had with the Eruption Agi Pain Res is that there's no passive slowdown. I would have thought something like Ruin could be a little bit better, or even something like switching out corrupt for brutal or something, that what it does is that make chases happen shorter and also rewards passive slowdown. Even if they spread out on gens, there's only 3 people that could work on a gen when there is an active chase, and that's assuming that they're all going to sit there together. But we looks like here that, man, this is just tough sledding for Echoes' Slinger. Dispersion is taking all the collision they can and breaking the chain in every instance possible.
Yep, absolutely. Beth's doing a really good job getting shot right where there's a bunch of things to get rid of that chain. We're already at 3 gens pop, no hooks, no pressure for Bozo at all. It's very unfortunate for Echoes here. We need to get that pressure going like very soon for Echoes to still have a chance at this 4K2. However, gens are just so split. And Hanato here, Rewind, playing very well to make sure that Bozo would try and get an M1 instead of playing for that stun duration cooldown. And, like, it's just really hard for Bozo to come back from this. I want to say that a 4th gen is almost guaranteed to pop here. Tortilla being found, however, a chance for Bozo to generate some extra pressure has finally arrived.
Yeah, finally has arrived here, but I also think that part of the issue, like I said, about not having a pallet breaking or a passive slowdown is that every chase feels like it needs to happen right then. And I think that we actually might get some value here. No, we don't, from the stun duration. And I think that Bozo's kind of realizing with that little pause in movement that this is pretty much game over at this point, unfortunately. Unless something catastrophic happens and all survivors decide that they want to give the killer a free kill so they could drop their MMR.
Yeah, I would say so. My input on having something on like Ruin, this is Wrecker's Yard, and in my experience, totem spawns are very easy to find on this map. I am a totem nerd myself, if I could like be self-proclaimed in that. And the Wrecker's totems, I've always found them so quickly. Maybe because I've been doing so many scrims where it's just Ruin Undying Penty. I just know where to look in every tile, every auto haven place. So that could be just me on that. But Ruin isn't a bad choice, as you said. It's just that the totem spawn can be really unlucky and could easily be considered a massive gamble. We see Chase brought to the complete opposite side where gens are being worked. The down happens, our first pain rest, our first eruption. Regression is finally in place here. We see the aura read onto someone at Shack. I believe that would be Hanato, based off of how that looks, and the 4th generator pops securing that Tycon.
Yeah, the thing about Ruin is that it works, in my opinion, in this scenario is a little bit, as we could see here, a head-on play stopping, I believe, the hits, which was actually pretty sick. Okay. I'm a little bit of a loss of words of how well that played out here. At this point, Dispersion is just flexing. My thought process with Ruin on a map like this is it works as sort of a pseudo corrupt for when people actually are trying to do gens, and it's a different way of getting some early game slowdown, and it also lets people know where a survivor is when they get that notification. And I think that there's something to be said about trying different strategies here in Scrim Nights. I'm very much a fan of that. I am biased, however, because in my last Scrim that I played, I used Cruel Limits on Plague on Suffo 1. So I think that to me, it's all about trying different strategies and something that's a bit out of the norm. But unfortunately, Bozo went with the norm, and they still got one staged as Slinger. And not to say that Dispersion didn't play well, but they certainly did. But I think that Bozo was a little bit out of their depth with this build and how they played the tiles, leaving too many pallets up and leaving too much room for passive, for down slowdown rather than no passive slowdown.
Yeah, but this set here was our Survivor team's pick, was Dispersion's pick, so Dispersion is definitely a lot more comfortable playing the Deathslinger here compared to Echoes, but our next pick is the Unknown, who Echoes had chosen to uh, play for their team. Now we see a big effort from Bozo trying to get just one more kill, but unfortunately not going to be happening. We'll be back with the Unknown, who is Echo's pick, to see how confident they are on that killer. We'll be right back.
Part 2 of the Wrecker saga here of Echoes versus Dispersion. We have Echoes on the killer, the unknown killer, versus Dispersion serves. And we have a very noisy unknown set here to start. And I am your host, Def Jukies, here with Nugs. Nugs, what do you want to see out of Dispersion on this next set?
Now this set was Echo's pick, so I want to see if Dispersion did practice for this, as Echoes is likely going to be more experienced on the Unknown. Best already showing they know what they're doing on the Unknown. And a nice window fade coming through as well. Going to be getting that weekend off, but right back on to Best here. Now we're at a filler right at 3, and a shot, a miss, going to be leaving that chase. We see a build here that was very similar to what Echoes brought in the Deathslinger set. Agi, Painres, Corrupt, and Eruption, having those 2 regression perks, and Agi to help with one of those regression perks and good hook spots. What do you think of this build?
I'm a fan of the build. I'm really not a fan of the way that people use Agi on wreckers so frequently, because I think that the issue is that people assume that their chases are going to be short. And I'm very much a fan of bringing in a brutal or a BAM even on certain maps, certain killers, to help compensate for shorter chase times. But I think that what the issue I see with these add-ons here is that I don't know if they've read the patch notes that Unknown's teleportation, excuse me, the movement speed after teleporting returns faster. They made part of Blurry Photo base kit, and it was an overall nerf. So now it's a 15%, and I think maybe they would have been better served with a different kind of add-on. I don't know if they would want it hindered. I would have to check to see if Hypnotist Watch is allowed. There's a lot of choices here that they missed out on, all in the name of running the tried and true, which is now not even as good as it used to be.
Now, I'm not very much familiar with Unknown add-ons, but I have seen those patch notes, and they definitely make a difference as to the add-on choices, especially with part of the being base kit. Now, we do see a tag onto Sonic, Chase being reapplied onto Besk, the 4th and final teleport being dropped down at 12. And Best's going to be doing a good job taking this chase away from any active gens. Moonlight going to be teleporting away, breaking this filler, going right back to Shack, and pressuring Tortilla off it. Faking the drop onto Shack Pallet, has Sprint Burst, very huge. Yeah, just dirty by Tortilla. Just showing Moonlight who is the boss. Now Moonlight going to be leaving this chase. Still a down yet to happen, unfortunately. And gonna be teleporting to Ace as he was trying to dispel. That is going to be very good for Moonlight here, getting that free tag with some help from Blurry Photo as well. Now Tortilla just bringing it to the 9 side of the map, where there are no generators at all that can be active. Gonna be unfortunately missing that UVX, not gonna be applying the weekend. And now Tortilla's doing a really good job with this chase, as survivors are just still smashing these gens.
Yeah, I think that the issue I saw with Echoes when they played against Slingers, they played against Slinger like Slinger is an M1. And I think that that's fine, but I think what we're seeing here is that Dispersion is acutely aware of the different capabilities that killers have. And even then, chase is happening across the map and not specifically in a single tile where body blocks are meant to happen. And what this is doing is that it's giving the killer a little bit more anxiety that they can't go and defend a gen when they like. And when a killer runs nothing but gen perks, as you can see that save coming in here as expected, that they get a little bit nervous when they get away from the gens and their downs are taking a little bit too long. So they default into kicking gens more often than they should. I think this is what's the bit of the downfall with these sort of gen regression heavy builds, as we see Best taking that all the way to the top side where it's a completed gen. There is a hallucination there, however.
Yeah, gonna be teleporting to that hallucination, and now Besk is going to be going down here. Has, unfortunately, nothing to work with. The reset onto Tortilla happens in the meantime, and there's probably another survivor working a generator. We're gonna be seeing our first hook of the game, first pain res, hopefully, onto this 10 hook here at the seawall. And that will be our pain res. But these gens are looking so split. This is looking like potentially a good amount of outs here for Dispersion. Sonic is found working the bus's generator, the unhook onto Besk coming through very quickly. Moonlight can't teleport back and get a fast tunnel out, and is just deciding to try and play for the fresh hooks here, get those pain reses, get some eruption value.
Yeah, you know, and I really do feel for the killers when they get put in these situations where they feel like everything is just going wrong and they can't do it. I've been there. We've all been there. Lots of people have these instances where the game just isn't going where they want it to. I could kind of see the frustration there with Moonlight as they go in, they put the UVX quite literally on the back of the pickup truck. And what it is that when there's gen regression perks, there needs to be downs. And the issue is also is that there are a lot of people who do believe that if you don't run gen regression, then you are throwing the match. However, I do believe that needs to be amended to if you are not getting downs and putting gen pressure on, you are throwing the match. And I think right now with Moonlight, there definitely are instances where I could have seen a perk, an add-on, or something, or a strategy change that would have helped them in this scenario to try and get as much as they could out of those downs. Something as simple as even checking to see if, you know, Infectious forced Hezi to check for pallet pickups, things like that could have made an infinite amount of difference to help them retain their downs as they get a down here in Besk. But that's also the thing about Dispersion, is that they are very much around every time there is a down. Unlike Echoes, when Echoes was getting it down, there was somebody there, but there was a body block to come in first rather than a save.
Yep, we see that attempt at a flashlight save from Tortilla. Perhaps, like, probably trying to put some pressure so Sonic and Rewind can do the last gen, and they sure did. Holy. These guys are playing nasty, and it's working. Besk taking the body block for Tortilla, as Tortilla is a fresh hook, and Besk is only worth 2 stages compared to 5. And the difference between a 4-stage win con and a 5-stage win con is pretty massive. There was a gate right by where that generator popped too, so that's likely being worked on right now and opened, taken right from my mouth. We're gonna see Soma and Jake escaping the trial. Ace as well. That will be a 4-stage match, and these survivors played really well. We'll see Dispersion's killer coming up right after this short break. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Grindhouse Scrims. We are on set 2, match 2, with the unknown Dispersion on the killer, who had gotten a 0.5 hook stage penalty due to setting the wrong map. However, the win con is still pretty light for him, only needing to get 4 stages total to take that crown. Jukies, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How want to say is that the map penalty thing does tend to happen, and what the penalty does, it's very light, but what it does is eliminate the possibility for a tie. So it gives a sort of a boost to the team that didn't have the penalty and give them a shot here, but apparently Meg over there taking back shots by the gate, apparently. So this is a faster down than anything that was given, but there's a head-on play right there. So all my talk about back shots was just to get back shots to the corrupt intervention.
Wow, that was a really nice head-on save, likely coordinated very well by these survivors here. But with Corrupt gone, Best still has the chance of a fast down, getting that pressure started, because 4 stages gonna be very hard for Echoes to avoid. Moonlight dying on that pallet, and Best knows someone will be there. Gonna do a nice TP, and gonna be swinging through that sprint burst that Bozo has. Now Best knows which exhaustion is the sprint burst. Jonah coming in for the save. Another survivor as well. Bozo as well coming right back for that pallet save. That is incredibly well played by Echo Survivors. But that also means not much gen progression is happening. So it's still a little 50-50 here. What do you think of this current situation, Jukis?
I think the situation is that it's sort of similar to the similar situation previously, I believe, with Echoes, except that Echoes is giving it right back to them, and I think that that is a very rewarding thing to see as a spectator, that a match is not over just because another team had a rough set, that they're fighting back. The one thing I will say about the add-on choice here for the Unknown is that B-Movie Poster is a bit of an interesting pick here, but it does help secure downs and avoid the ability to FTP or receive an adrenaline health stage at the end. What it does is that when you get hit and damaged by the UVX, which remember takes the first hit to get weakened, second hit to take the hit, and gens are flying, speaking of second hit, what it does is that it adds a broken status effect that lasts relatively short, only about, I believe, 20 seconds. And what it does is it makes sure that the health stage that the server is in is going to remain that way regardless of what goes on here. But Echoes here, Bozo is looking to exercise some of those demons that they were going with right now. And I'm not sure if Beth saw Jonah lurking around, but they did. And this is where it gets a little aggressive on the part of Echo survivors. And actually, it works out.
These guys are playing for save, denying as many stages as possible. They want to take this Unknown win, and these guys are definitely prepared to fight. Two gens popped, still no hook stages, and chase at Shack here with Bozo again. The Shack pallet, if I remember correctly, is gone. Now going to be taking chase towards the bottom side of the map, where generators are complete. We have a nice 4-lane here that Bozo is going to be dying on the pallet again. We'll see. Going to be checking for a survivor nearby. I believe we just saw Creepy trying to be the one going for that save. And we see the right perk there. That's Best's back pocket there. No one escapes death. Two downs with that, and it's practically over. Just able to hook one and then secure another if they don't find that Noah in time. But Bozo still being slugged. These guys are playing for that save, trying to deny any stages, any pain reses, just getting rid of that pressure as Bozo also gets picked up.
Yeah, it's looking really rough here for Dispersion's killer. And that head-on play might have been the play that saved everything, because it goes from an insta-down to a save, and saves both the pressure and the camping that is inevitably going to happen. Best here getting a little bit paranoid, thinking about trying to pick up and not waste as much time. It's just a lot of things going on here that Echoes did correct in this set that they weren't able to replicate, but because of the win con, for how well they played this set, they have to get the pull at some point and make sure that even then the win con can also be freshes as well. So if they get, I believe, 4 stages, well, either way, it doesn't matter anymore, actually, because of that penalty. So they just have to get 4 stages.
Yep, that win con is 4 stages, so if they smash these 2 gens, don't get another down, and just let Bozo die, that's Echoes taking that set due to the hook stage counter being 2.5 stages instead of that 3 stages. But we do find the chase onto an injured survivor, as the other 2 are also weakened, waiting to TP. And the TP comes back just in time as the unhook happens. Gonna be chasing a separate fresh here because of that win condition. 3 stages, and Dispersion takes it 2 stages, and it's Echoes that takes it. Quick down happens. We know the pain res is here, and Besk might be able to start some pressure here.
Yeah, so to speak about the win con a little bit, what the penalty does is that it actually takes away stages away from the killer. So they start off with a negative 0.5 onto it. And so what that means is that whatever stages they get has to be greater than whatever the tie con is. So tying is not possible anymore because of that half point. But also too, because of the way that the matches are scored, it goes gens completed, followed by stages of hooks, then by freshes. So at this point, because there is a 0.5, there is no third win condition to think about. It's going to be strictly by stages. So at this point, Besk needs to play for 4 stages, which it looks like they're about to get right now.
Yep, Bozo went down, and they're the one with the flashlight. There's no chance of a pallet save. So once that pick happens, it's guaranteed to be that 4th and final hook for Dispersion here, and gonna be taking the unknown set. So that is exactly what we're gonna be seeing. And even if that pain res onto Piao was very huge in terms of this game, we're going to be taking Bozo right to the hook, though, and just going to be slugging Bozo and camping Piao as that gen on 11 has some insane...
Jesus.
Oh, that's a nice shot onto Moonlight. That was nasty. That lost me my train of thought. And
Christ.
Another down. Besk is showing how to get those shots in. Creepy gonna be 99ing Bozo's heal, trying to wait for their tag, and gonna be missing the UVX, still just standing on top of Bozo. They are staring each other down, just not having it at all. That will be the weekend onto Creepy, and they're just having a staring contest, man.
I would even say they're having a Claudette standoff at this point. But either way, it looks like it's going to end up being... Well, the 4th stage has not happened yet, by the way. So there's still a possibility that... Well, it's still a possibility. There's always a chance until there isn't. And Creepy Peepee going down right here. And that's going to be the win for... Dispersion on the killers. We are going to go to a tiebreaker, though, and we still have to see how the rest of this end game matches up. So, just to review a little bit, Nug, where do you think that Echoes went wrong in this match?
I believe that as soon as that first hook happened, that first pain res, that threw off their game pretty badly. But even then, it's just after the second hook, even we saw, or not the second hook, Piao's hook, the 3rd pain res, we saw the 11 gen, just 99. Bozo's trying to get that done, but the hook at 10 was a pain res. It loses all of its progress. 11 can't be popped. And that was just a huge moment for Dispersion. Their chance to bring it back finally came, and with Noed in that back pocket, even if they popped that gen, you can just camp Piao to second and get that win. But here we see the 4K1, those final downs happen, Moonlight's still been slugged this entire time, now just gonna be looking for her. But I believe both teams played this extremely well. Echoes knew that win con and played for it.
Yeah, I do want to clarify as well that although this is a 4K1, it doesn't necessarily tell the story of how the match went. The way that they say it in professional sports is sometimes the box score doesn't tell the whole story. And I think that when people look at this match and they say, well, it is a 4K1, I do think that needs to be commended as how well Echoes played this on the Survivor side. They played it very well, very efficiently. And inevitably there is going to be mistakes that happen, and there's going to be snowballs. And the thing is that Dispersion just played overall better throughout the entire match. With Echoes, there were bursts of instances where they played extremely well, but if you notice, both the Slinger and the Unknown set ended up being 4K ones for different reasons. The Unknown set, it was a kind of at that point that they realized the win con was a little bit too much, and they just weren't able to keep up. With the Slinger set, unfortunately, it looked like they were just a little bit too fast on getting the gens done and not considering the overall result. And I think that that is something to be commended for with Echoes, though, is that they went into this match understanding there was a difficult win con. They decided that they were still going to play the match out, that they understood that this is for fun, this is to improve. And I think that that's something that needs to be commended no matter what. So we'll be right back with our tiebreaker set, Chucky, after this. In the immortal words, don't fuck with the Chuck. We have a Chucky set here, Dispersion and Echoes doing a promo, as we would call it in the battle rap community, a promo tiebreaker set. Just for funsies, we have Besk here on the Chuck. I'm your host, Def Jukies, and we're seeing a first tag on the Bozo here. Dispersion on the Killer versus Echoes. Nugs, how much do you know about Chucky?
I know a fair bit about Chucky. I do know that his recent buffs make him quite the powerful killer in Chase here. Kind of similar to Blight in a sense, where you can kind of expect those fast downs. But we do see this chase at main here, and it's looking like a down onto Bozo. Nice straightaway at main. Best taking full advantage of that, and that will be our first hook of the game, right towards the middle of the map. We do see the build of Painres, Pop, Corrupt, and Noed in the back pocket for if all those gens pop, you have an insta down. What do you think of this build, Jukies?
I think that the build's perfectly fine. This is a very good build for Chucky, and I think that one of the things is that because of how comfortable they are probably with Chucky, that they do have Straight Razor and Power Drill to compensate for the lack of brutal strength, but also give extra slowdown. With DDS, one of the things I do like about DDS is that you could play any type of way. You could have Ruined, you can have Pain Res, you can run Agi, no Agi, you could run Brutal, you can run all sorts of things on this map. And even though the totem spawns are, you know, pretty much fairly well known at this point, they still can be a little bit difficult to get to because of the way that the map is. But either way, Best seems happy to camp out Bozo despite this 70-second hook timer with Nancy creeping in the background there. Thinking about maybe to get that hit, but I think that's a 99 sprint burst if I've ever seen one here. So Besk is pretty aware of that, and if there's not a stun here, it looks like it's gonna be a save regardless.
Yep, that will be the trade on to Bozo here. Besk's not going to be taking that second pain race, however. Instead, going to be very adamant on trying to get this tunnel out here. Going to be scampering under the shack pallet, but the 90-degree turn limit for flicks allows Bozo to get away and not have this tunnel out happen quick. As he goes back to main, Besk does not want to chase that, instead hearing high progress on the Gallows generator, who was being worked by the balanced landing user Piao, now going back to Creepy to see Bozo going for the pickup onto her, and now we're back onto the tunnel out in a turn of events.
Yeah, one of the things is that about this Sloppy Butcher add-on is that it's very good if you can get your tunnel out quickly. Because of the new time that they put onto Mangled and Hemorrhage for add-ons and Sloppy Butcher itself, what it does now is that it makes it so that it might be a better decision to run a different add-on if it at the expense of tunnel out pressure. Because the issue is that I've always said is that chases aren't short, then some of that pressure with Sloppy Butcher is now negated because of the way that the add-on works now. And personally, I would have loved to see Automatic Screwdriver to go with Power Drill, and because it's a sort of pseudo mobility that Chucky gets from it. But either way, these add-ons are perfectly fine. And I think that the other thing is that there will be questions, obviously, as to why the Chucky rat poison, as made famous by Ashlow, isn't being used, and that's because we ban a lot of those add-ons here in Comp DBD. Many people feel that it's unfair. They feel that it's not a form of skill expression. They feel that it replaces game sense, and so they run themselves with these add-ons, but once those add-ons are taken away, they don't do nearly as well. So to see them have this game sense, this chase, all of that stuff, it just makes it so that it's a much more exciting thing to watch as we see a hook party here with all 4 survivors there.
Yep, they're going for that triple save. They do not want Bozo to die at 3 generators, not at all. But with everyone there, that means there's no gen pressure at all happening on the map. Best knows he can chase Bozo here and get that tunnel out, with it still likely being at 3 gens. I lied for the people coming through. Now this chase extended even longer, thanks to Moonlight having an excellent for the people. Bozo might not make this pallet, though. Gonna be dying on it, however. Someone might be around. We don't hear footsteps, and that is not the case. The tunnel up still happens at 3 gens. I personally don't believe that going for the triple save there was necessarily worth it. Maybe a double save, but you need people on those gens, especially on the Dead Dog Saloon.
Yeah, one of the things about Chucky on this map is that the bushes do tend to hide him, and if you're not looking for the audio cues, it becomes difficult to have to run him. I do want to note also that Echoes is having fun here. This is actually just fun for us. It gives us some time in between the intermission. It gives us sort of a campfire chat. So regardless of how this plays out, we just ought to give all the respect in the world to Echoes and Dispersion for allowing us to continue to do our thing as casters, do our thing as Grindhouse, and just give them, you know, something to, you know, look back at and say, well, I haven't seen this differently.
Yes, we do thank these teams for playing this tiebreaker, even though Dispersion did take the wins 2-0. But now, with this 3v1 happening at 3 generators, I'm pretty sure Besk has an idea as to where all 3 survivors are. I believe we saw 2 people doubling the main generator, and then the chase onto Moonlight was happening at main, so Besk should have an idea as to where nearly everyone is at this point in time. Going to be checking this 6 generator, 3 generator. I know people use different clocks, but generally looking around this area here as we slug Creepy, trying to generate a good amount of pressure to get a 4K3.
Yeah, I think another thing about Chucky I want to say on this map that makes him difficult is that a lot of people tend to play these killers very similar. If you check spot the torso of the killer over the rock, and you look there and you make sure that you're able to stop them. But the thing about Chucky is that that's not very, very possible. Chucky is very difficult in the sense that the traditional ways of playing against killers don't work against him. And that's what makes Spirit so difficult as well, is that when Spirit is in power, it's audio cues and basically a guessing game. And with Chucky, it feels like a lot of people tend to forget that he is very similar in that way, that the more time someone spends in chase against the Chucky, the more likely, obviously, it is they're going to go down, but that's because of how quickly Chucky gets his power back. But the difference between Chucky and Spirit is that Chucky does not rely on an accessibility issue for their power. Chucky is still there. Chucky gives off all the audio cues, even the little footsteps behind the rock, to give survivors the idea of how they should play. But as you can see, sometimes we call it so lovingly being Chuck spotted. And I think with the thing about Chucky is that on a map like this, because of how small it is, it gives people the misnomer that he can be just as deadly on big maps. As we see the desync here coming in here.
Yeah, Chucky is definitely one of those powerful killers in the sense of Spirit as well. Just fast chases, similar to Spirit, similar to Blight, similar to Billy, similar to all the S tiers pretty much. But now we see the unhook onto Creepy. Best knows where the other two survivors are now. They're going to be probably likely separating from each other because of how close this mid hook is to the gallows area, and just searching for one of these two survivors over in the main gallows area here. Going to be using the slice and dice to try and cut off who I believe was Creepy as the unhook goes through onto Piao. Now, this is definitely a very rough spot for the survivors. Being injured against a Chucky is very difficult to have a long chase against, as the locker pull does happen onto Piao. No decisive strike on Piao at all. We know where Creepy is stuck at main. I think this is going to be a 4K at high generators. What do you think, Jukis?
I think it is going to be obviously a 4K of some sort at this point, and I think that we're all trying to figure out how strong Chucky really is. Still a year later, a lot of people, they look at Chucky and they say that he's this unstoppable machine, the same way as say Billy Blight or Nurses, and I think he's close to it, but I would probably say just a little bit underneath that. But I do think that what I like about Chucky on DDS is that there's so much room for survivors to play around here, but there's also so much coverage and foliage for the Chucky to hide in. And it, just like I said, it just amplifies that unique playstyle that people have to have against the Chucky. And, the Chucky just is... The thing about Chucky... He's like a little Oni. That's the best way I could describe him sometimes. Is the way that his flicks happen. A lot of Oni mains that I know, when they played Chucky, they felt like they were right at home. But also at the same time, too, I think that the rework still catches everyone off guard with how quickly he gets his power back. I also would say that I am not a fan of Scamper for Brains. So just to ask you quickly, Nugs, did you ever play Chucky when he still had the ability to scamper?
I did, yes. The scamper ability definitely resulted in a lot of free hits. It's drop pallet, scamper under, and either get the slice and dice or get the M1. It's practically free. What exactly are you going with this, Jukis? I'd like to
Well,
know.
just out of curiosity, is that do you think that Chucky was better when he was Scamper for Brains, or do you think extra short cooldown Chucky is better?
I believe I like the shorter cooldown as it brings in more skill expression, in my opinion. I believe that the skill expression that Chucky can bring with the shorter cooldown, having more chances of those slice and dices, it's kind of like Blight, for instance, while he still had those. There was this one bug with low pro, like it was practically a scamper thing with the Blight, and that removed all of his skill expression entirely. Kind of similar to Chucky here, and I'd like to stay on that road. Having a shorter cooldown gives him more skill expression and more chance for quick downs.
Yeah, absolutely. I really did, was not a big fan of Chucky when Chucky first came out. And that had nothing to do with the turn rate or anything of that nature. In fact, I knew a friend of mine had, as we see Creepy Peepee, staring from the peephole upstairs. I had a friend of mine who had actually worked on P100ing Chucky and got 20 prestiges up until the point where Chucky got his turn limit on. And it was a bit difficult because he just felt like he was learning a completely different killer that he had so much fun with. But also, I think that's the balance of this game. And the same thing happens with comp as well, is that, as we see, Creepy Peepee right next to the Brazier mannequin, comp balancing has to take into account a number of factors. They have to take into account how survivors can counterplay certain perks, how they can counter certain maps, certain killers. And I think that where Chucky is in comp is in a very good spot because it's a very octane set, but at the same time too, it gives the survivors ample tools to make it a fun match, but it also gives the killer... It utilizes the short cooldown that Chucky has in a way that makes it so that when a Chucky gets a down like this, it doesn't feel free. It feels that there is skill expression. There is knowledge about how to play around the slice and dice. There's knowledge about collision, timing, all these things that go with Chucky that are just fascinating to watch.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you 100% there. And with Chucky, it's kind of similar to the S tier sets as to how the pressure is generated, which I've said like multiple times. Quick chases with Blight, with Spirit, with Nurse, with Billy. Those are S tiers because they can have those quick chases. But the difference between uh, Chucky and what makes him not an S tier is that he kind of lacks that map pressure. He doesn't have a way to go fast on a like consistently. He has his slices dices, but that's on cooldown a lot more often compared to Blight always being at 9.2 meters per second.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm already getting angry messages about my take on Chucky having some sort of skill expression, but I do stand by that there is a difference between Blight, Nurse, Billy, even Spirit for that matter. But at the end of the day, results are what they are, and Chucky is always going to be lurking in that sort of S to A tier. As we're utilizing the Mori actually for the first time here in comp. We'll be back after this break.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Grindhouse Scrims with our final game between Dispersion and Echoes. We have Echoes on the Chuck, or the Tiff, I should say, as a matter of fact, with a tough win condition of a 4K4. These survivors need to pop 3 gens, that's all they need to do, and Moonlight has a build to reflect that that is our win condition. Already slice and dicing, seeing the Hanato rewind stealthing in the back there. And I am joined by Jukies. How are you doing today, Jukies?
I'm having a swell time here watching these head-on plays against Tiffany. It's been a pretty quick hit, but I do think also too that that desync coming in there against the ace here near Shaq. So just quickly about the build difference here. If I'm not mistaken, that looks like automatic screwdriver instead of power drill with the same straight razor add-on that applies the sloppy butcher mangled hemorrhage combo. So just quickly, we talked a little bit about Chucky's mobility on the previous match. So what this add-on does is that it helps with the missed slice and dices recover quicker, as you can see there, than if Chucky was getting them faster from hits.
Yeah, we see that reflect in the power bar, the cooldown just jumping 10%, and Best having a really nice chase here is going to end up taking a tag due to there being no pallet at main there. It is instead going to be like at the left side of main, and now Besk has the entirety of main to work with here. Going to be taking that vault. We might see a balanced landing. I believe this is Lucky Break, actually, as we see no scratch marks, no blood at all coming from Besk. We see the pre-drop onto the 4 lane here, and now Besk is having a really good time losing Tiffany here in this chase. Moonlight struggling to keep track, and is just going to be leaving, trying to find someone else.
Yeah, like I said in the previous set, previous match, I should say, of this set, is that with the what's allowed versus Chucky, what this does is that pretty much there's a lot of tools that people can use to extend chases here. As you can see, Besk using the Lucky Break Balance Landing combo to make so much distance and make it a more difficult time to both track and get Chucky's, to avoid Chucky's follow-up hits. So what it does is breaking line of sight and having that silent drop makes it so that it's more difficult, and also with the audio occlusion issues, that it just makes it so much more difficult to be able to track the survivor, as we have a gen pop here. And remember, WinCon is 4K4, so it doesn't look like it's going to happen here. But just really quickly, I just want to get your thoughts, Nugs. Are you a Tiffany fan or are you a Chucky fan?
I have not watched the show, but style-wise, I do like how Tiffany is styled more than Chucky, so to say. But we do have another chase here at main, going to be kicking the main generator, trying to apply that eruption and hopefully start some pressure going as a second generator does pop. That is the tie condition for Dispersion survivors here. Moonlight cannot let another generator pop. A nice slice and dice is happening here. Gonna be the first down of the game. Will that be a flashlight save? No, it won't. Tortilla just coming in a little too late. And now Tortilla is going to be getting chased at main. Not going to be breaking the door and actually leaving this chase. I lied. So we're not going to be camping this hook, however. Moonlight knows that there's a lot of gen pressure. The third generator pops, and that will be the win condition secured for Dispersion. That is a lovely set of events for Dispersion survivors. They know what they're doing against the Chuck. And now going to be securing this tunnel out onto Besk, or at least trying to. They have the main building to work with, and as we know with the Dead Dog Saloon main building, it is good.
Yeah, it is good. It's really difficult, but also too, Besk understands that they're the one with balanced landing that needs to utilize this main building as much as possible. And this sort of right here is the reason why I'm a big fan of using Brutal on Chuck, for this reason. Because as little as it feels that those pallets can get in the way, or how short that cooldown is, I would think if they had Brutal and they were running Jump Rope, they probably are able to get a follow-up hit after that break pretty quickly. But at the same time too, you know, I understand that with WinCon they have to play according to their perks, despite this being a kind of sort of promo for funsies thing. I think that that's what makes Chucky so interesting is just the fraction of seconds and being 110. Setting up for slice and dices is a lot harder than it looks.
Yeah, you got to calculate your distances correctly. Kind of similar to the Spirit in a sense, where you got to calculate your distances correctly, make sure that when you phase as the Spirit, you are going to be landing on a survivor. You have the distance in order to catch up to such survivor. And with Chucky, you got to make sure you have that distance to when you start dashing, it's gonna land. And you got to make sure that the survivors are in such positions in order for that to actually happen. But we do see unhook onto Besk and a follow-up down where multiple survivors are in the area for this pallet save. Not just Sonic, but I believe I saw Rewind by the water tower. But Moonlight might not have seen Rewind. We're going to see if we're going to get the pickup here. Faking the pickup, and we do see scratch marks trying to go towards the save. It was Tortilla, not Rewind. Rewind had popped that generator, but if the pallet save does not happen here, that will be our tunnel out secured at one generator.
Yeah, I do think this was a normal Chucky match with a win con that wasn't insurmountable. We would talk about how good Moonlight really is recovering from this and applying a lot of pressure on these survivors. And the good old-fashioned imaginary Chucky crouch tech that I've been unfortunately subject to, or as we have the third-person whiff that we see very often here on Chucky. Yeah, Moonlight is not playing this badly at all. The win con being what it is what's difficult. I think that the one thing as well that needs to be discussed more often is the effect that add-ons have on Chucky's kit. As little as that 8%, 10%, whatever it is for a hit versus miss cooldown add-ons, I do think that that does make a difference on how Chucky is played on those little fractions of seconds, and every second matters with the generator, as inaccessible as they are on DDS against a 110 killer. So even having the automatic screwdriver versus the power drill is allowing Moonlight to traverse the maps more freely and be a much more immediate threat, even if it's just for 1 second. 1 second is all it takes sometimes for a gen to get done, or for an unhook to happen, for a body block to happen, to get into position. It's just a matter of literal inches in this game.
Yep, this was Dead by Daylight. Dead by Daylight, the more so time game, where we're calculating time. The regression perks add more time for you to create more pressure. The survivors doing generators, that's the ticking clock right there. the generator times 90 seconds at a time. Those gens, multiple people. You could go from it being 450 seconds for gens to perhaps even just like 300. That's what matters. But we do see Moonlight creating a lot of pressure here. Two slugs just rewind to try and save this game. Rewind rotating to main, but Tortilla nowhere to be seen, likely rotating for Sonic's pick or trying to stealth somewhere, as we see Tortilla going to the location as to where Sonic was previously downed, or at least in that general area. And as you said before, Moonlight is not playing this bad at all. Moonlight is doing a really good job on this Tiffany here. It's just that WinCon just made it so much more difficult for Moonlight to have that pressure for a 4K4.
Yeah, you know, part of it is too is that they left that main gen for last against Chucky, and it's so difficult to reach, and I think that was a very wise decision. But also at the same time too, by keeping it open and making sure that the bounce landing survivor, who was Besk at the time, was able to utilize main building until their death, is a very underrated move. And whether it's intentional or not, I'm not sure, but the way that it played out in this match made it so that Moonlight really can't stop that main gen from being done without sacrificing maybe a good 15 to 20 seconds just to get up there.
Yep, you're spending a lot of time going into the main building, up the stairs, and then to the generator. That is time being wasted. The name of the game, time. And that allows things such as this pull here to happen because it's not as close as you think. You have staircases to go up, and then you have to rotate all the way around the main building. We see the down onto Tortilla gonna be happening rather quickly, practically calling it a trade, and Moonlight did that perfectly. That was a nice slice and dice. Now, the eruption has procced over on the main generator and the gallows area generator, but we still haven't checked the third generator remaining, which is on the opposite corner of the map of the gallows side generator. And instead of committing to Sonic, we're going to be going to Tortilla and perhaps getting another pain risk.
Yeah, what I'm seeing here though is what Sonic did was exactly what people need to do against Chucky in any situation. And whether people call it boring or not is a different discussion for a different day. But what Sonic did was basically bait the tile out, play the tile until they lost line of sight against the Chucky, and then realized that they have to get behind an obstacle or they have to lose line of sight. There's just a lot of parallels between how Spirit is played, how all these 110s are played in lots of ways, but more specifically with Chucky is just because of it being that sort of like pseudo Ghostface Myers thing where there is no red stain, that all there is audio cues, and it makes it difficult at times. But as you can see here, it regardless of how Moonlight has played very well and really greeted for probably the 4K1 more than the 2K6, which again is what we talk about in comp, being the 4K1 versus the 2K6.
Yep, and a lovely hatch escape there coming from Renato. He knows where it spawned, and body blocking Moonlight to make sure that he's the one getting in the hatch and it's not getting closed on his face. That was Dispersion versus Echoes, though. Dispersion going to be taking the sets 3-0. Lovely tiebreaker. We thank the teams for playing this tiebreaker out for funsies. This was Nugs. I was joined by Jukies, and we'll be seeing you in our next matchup with Snapply and Monarch casting Noxes versus Chads. We'll see you then.
Welcome back, everybody, to Grindhouse Scrims Week 17. We are now on our second matchup of the night. We have Chads versus Noxes, and starting off here, Unknown on the Wrecker's Yard. This is probably one of his best maps. We have Para on the Killer, and I am loving the build I see in the bottom right now. We are incorporating Brutal Strength and Agitation, two of my favorite killer perks, especially on killers like Unknown, and an amazing shot through the Z-Wall. Hayden already on the Z-Wall at 5 gens left. Regardless, I am joined here by my fellow caster, Monarch. How are you doing this evening?
I am doing fantastic, Snapply, and I just love Unknown sets in general. I want to see the creative ways that people use his power, bounce it off different surfaces, trying to hit people through walls at different tiles. I just love the creativity that this killer really allows. and just how much pressure that this coach can exert onto the map. So I'm really excited for this matchup to play out.
Yeah, it is worth noting that Unknown just recently, as of 2 days ago, received a slight nerf. Blurry photo is now slightly less effective, though I do believe it is still being ran here. And it essentially just means that upon teleporting, Unknown has a bit more of a cooldown before they can start moving to full speed. But Para not letting that get in their way. We see the first gen pop as the first down comes through into Hayden, and this agitation is going to ensure that Para can get this hook in the basement. Very potent position for the killer to have a hook, especially on Unknown. I mean, that's the joy of agitation on a small map like Wreckers. We saw Corrupt was actually not brought this round in return for being able to run Brutal and Agi. And I mean, Para's coming in with a plan, and we're going to see how this works. They have a very strong gen setup around the shack right now. Unknown is really good at just harassing these outer gens. I mean, we see right now, Para going for snipes on some of the outer gens, trying to push the survivors off. We catch Dino at the join bus right here. This is a very strong tile. I believe we should be seeing the unhook coming in shortly. I mean, you want to take advantage of this commitment, and yes, we see scratch marks going into basement. That is going to be the unhook, but now they have to make it out of the basement against an Unknown, which is quite difficult, but unfortunately the miss coming through on the power, Dame going to be taking a hit, so Hayden can get out of the basement. I mean, still 4 gens remaining. The hook did get out of the basement. That is huge for the survivors, but how do you see this game going so far?
Well, speaking of things popping, you see that the Unknown's Undying has already been cleansed, but the survivors are still aware that Ruin is up, and that will play an important part later on, as Ruin will end up exerting a lot of pressure within those 3v1 scenarios. Anything less than a 4v1, the Ruin takes priority over pretty much like anything else. You can't really get much done while the Ruin is up. And while Hayden was able to sneak right past the Unknown up the basement stairs, and dying presumably at 3, presumably having gens been working on the left side of the map. This is still a very good position for the Unknown to be in, because the Unknown clones allow them to exert their pressure anywhere they really want on the map. They can be from one side in the middle of a chase and then teleport completely to the other side defending a totem, and that will definitely come in handy later on. And we are catching someone right outside of Shack. The survivors still want to work on Shack. They're not willing to give up this gen quite yet. In most other scenarios, a gen like Shack would just be compromised at this point. It's way too close to the unhook. The Unknown can place many clones around it. It's just way too dangerous to be working on right now. And I wonder if the survivors will give up on that, or will they continue to try and work it?
Yeah, I mean, when you're playing on Wrecker's Yard, or really any map that has Shack in the middle, you can expect there to be a gen here. On this map, it's guaranteed, and it is one of the strongest gens. Unfortunately, trade not coming through. Unfortunate. Got auto-aimed onto the survivor on hook. But as I was saying, yeah, these maps, you always expect there to be a gen on Shack, and that is one of the most crucial gens. I mean, the killer, especially with agitation, can just easily pull that hook wherever they want, usually somewhere around the middle of the map, and just hold on to that as long as they want. However, that is going to be a 3rd gen popping. A lot of confidence coming in ads. Hayden, despite being 2nd hook, they have lasted this long. They've lasted down to 2 gens, and the prolonging of this tunnel out is going to be a deciding factor in this match. If we see Hayden going down here shortly, that could leave the 3v1 at 2 gens being in the Unknown's favor, and they did not quite fully die under the pallet, so Carvey was not able to get the pallet save, which would have been huge for the survivors. And with his agitation, Para can swing as much as they want, try getting that little hit onto Carvey with the server issues at the moment. That is going to be in return for Shack popping, though. As we have said, Shack is a very valuable gen that is going to be huge at this point in the game, and not going to get the hit onto Dame. Did not expect them to be so close, had their power ready, and unfortunately that will not result in the down. And Para kind of left here with a really bad gen setup. Now, if I do know something about Unknown, it's that they can hold these gen setups that are very spread out. Their teleports, despite being slightly nerfed now, still generate a lot of pressure on the survivors, especially in a 3v1. And all Para has to do here is catch out where they're healing, and we see Boon Illumination, I believe, from the builds earlier, which I just wanted to point out now. Interesting pick. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen that get ran before, but I get the thought process here is it does give you important information, especially if the killer's running something like a totem build. So we're going to see if the survivors can get value out of that. Para getting another clean down, but not really finding a very good spot to hook here. I mean, this isn't by much in the way of active gens. I guess it's in between these two, but still, extra pressure for the kill right now. Ruin still being up. I can still see this swinging either way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. At this point, with one person down, you'd expect the survivors of Chads to really want to put an emphasis on getting rid of that Ruin, but the Unknown is the Unknown. They can teleport, and they have set up two clones in the proximity of both the Generator and the Ruin Totem. So while any chases are happening, as for example, the one happening onto Dino Melon as they unhook Dame, survivors are actively losing progress on their generators. This is the influence that Ruin spreads, and with a killer like the Unknown, it's very hard to cleanse Ruin. I can genuinely see this swinging back into Para's favor, because the survivors might just not be able to get anything going, especially if the only healthy person left, Carvey, is found. We can assume that Dame is either hiding somewhere, or might even potentially want to sneak the pull for Dino if Para wants to commit on the generator that Carvey's working on. But we find Dame over here at the 11 generator, and it looks like Dame is just going to take the distance and just take it down as far away as possible to allow Carvey to get that unhook. But as I said, now you know where everyone is. Ruin is working its magic. No gens are being progressed at the moment. Para is in still a phenomenal state right now.
Yeah, I mean, that tunnel out coming in, as I said, at 2 gens was kind of huge. I mean, when this tunnel out occurs, that's when the killer really starts to apply pressure, especially on a killer like Unknown. I mean, we saw here how Para expertly forced the rotation from Carvey there. They committed chase onto Dino to get that hook in their gen spread, then was able to scope out Dame, and that forces Carvey to get off their gen. That forces Dino to now go for the rescue onto Dame while injured and potentially put themselves in harm's way. The only survivor capable of working a gen right now is Carvey. Dame was just spotted going towards 7. So, not going to have much time to rotate, but Para going to drop chase, knowing that the survivors are probably going to have to take time to reset. That'll give them more time for Ruin to work its magic, so they can now commit to a chase onto Carvey, who is a fresh hook, but is also the last healthy survivor. So, they will be a pretty valuable target here. I mean, they do have a lot of hang time on them. However, getting it down now does mean that you can put the hook in an ideal situation while you know nothing is happening, and that is going to be the down onto Carvey. And I mean, agitation is just going to allow Para to find the most progressed gen, put the hook right there, and not really worry about anything else. I mean, insanely strong perk for this map. That is going to be a hook on the gen at 3, and we actually do know the Rune Totem is right around here, so Para is in a pretty secure spot. They have 2 gens pretty close to this hook. They have a teleport, actually the teleport by the other one is gone at this point. They're going to have to get that back anytime now. Now, I would expect we find a survivor working this gen. We do. Dame rotating off of it. We see Dino immediately getting the pull onto Carvey. Being right there, Dame calling out immediately after Para started to commit to them. Hey, get the unhook now. It is as safe as ever. And I mean, that is incredible coordination on the survivor side. Getting these safe unhooks is something that Chads has been doing throughout the game, and it has been helping a lot despite the rough situation they're in.
Yeah, absolutely. The tides seem to be turning back in Chads' way as Carvey gets body locked by a window, but Dino and Dame were able to reset each other, so that allows more survivors on the map to actually be able to attack generators and go for these unhooks. But, as I said earlier, Ruin is still working its magic. We saw that while Carvey was in chase, Dame had to be forced to get off the generator that he was working on, but Dino has traded that for the ability to get rid of the Ruin, which is now very big, as that was Para's only gen regression perk. That was the only thing that Para had to defend against these generators. He went for a very aggressive, sort of chase-oriented, like, more choice-oriented build, using the brutal strength to the arrows palatable faster, and using the agitation to put the hooks where he wants them. So now this is starting to shift in Chads' favor.
I mean, yeah, as you said, eliminating that Ruin was huge. That leaves Para with 8 gen kicks on each gen, and just the little 5% they get from kicking that. And they will be committing onto Carvey, the injured survivor. But the balance landing and the expert dodge will allow Carvey to play around this TL, while Para not going to want to commit to that. They know that they have to keep tabs on these gens now that they don't have any perks to help them out. They can't simply do what they were doing before and just force the survivors to rotate and accept that Ruin will regress their gens, because now there is no passive gen regression. They have to be at the gens. They have to patrol them more closely. They cannot quite commit to as many risky chases. And I mean, with only 1 injury on the board and the chase onto Dino being taken far away from that gen at 11, I can only imagine that right now we have Dame cranking the gen, and we're not seeing the reset onto Carvey, so they possibly could even be doubling, depending on how quickly Carvey was able to rotate there based on where Chase was dropped. And Dino successfully getting rid of the weekend, not going to be taking an injury there, which is pretty big for Chads. I mean, if you get out of a chase without taking an injury, that is essentially just time lost for the killer, especially if there's no resources used during that chase. We did spot Dame out here on the gen at 3, possibly just trying to pick it up after the rotation from earlier, and catching Dino out, trying to rotate towards the gen at 11. I mean, maybe this does give Para a slight bit of hope, because they saw that Dame, instead of committing to that gen at 11, was actually trying to rotate to the gen at 3, so maybe they don't have as much progress as previously anticipated. That is going to be a tag, however, onto Dino, but Para just trying to spread the injuries so that they can get probably a chain of downs here. But, I mean, this gen is getting ever closer, and yeah, the Survivor working it might not be in the safest position, but this is your healthy Survivor, so they can waste some time, certainly.
Yeah, absolutely. Para is being spread very thin right now. They're doing an excellent job of not only going in for these safe unhooks, but also balancing out when to do generators, when to take aggro, and when to get rid of these unknown clones. The unknown clones is what allows the unknown to be everywhere whenever they need to. But as you saw, most of the clones near important locations were actually destroyed beforehand. So Para really didn't have much of a choice. He could only work with the clones that he had available. This is a very well done performance from Chads, recognizing the clone locations and taking out the most vital ones for Para. And that is going to be a down onto Dame, but we will inevitably see both Dino and Carvey making it out, unless they really want to preserve as many stages as possible and want to go for this, but highly unlikely. An unhook against an unknown, especially if someone is in the weakened stake, such as Dino Melon, that's very unsafe to go for, so they're probably just going to take the 2 man out, and this could be a very good performance on the side of Chad's, and we'll see if Chad's killer will be able to get an even better result against Noxes survivors.
Welcome back, everybody, to the second game of the first set here with Chads versus Noxes. We now have Dino taking on the role of the unknown here with their shattered bottle in hand. Holy crap, I can't speak tonight. And a very juicy build indeed. And they have a win condition of 10 stages. And yeah, there is no fresh exceptions there. The other killer for Team Noxes did manage to get all fresh hooks accounted for, and that was in fact Para, who is now taking the first chase as Comp Bill, which we love to see. Unfortunately, they are taking an injury and a weekend very quick together, and that might not be the first down. Actually, Para does manage to dodge the weekend status pick, but now they're playing 50s on this pallet. Extreme patience. They do take the vault with the life. Very well played from Para there, just buying themselves even more time right now. And I mean, that is exactly what is crucial for these unknown sets. You need that first chase to last, especially if there isn't corrupt. Your team can be pumping gens right now, but that will be the eventual down onto Para, but not a bad first chase. What are your thoughts so far in this matchup, especially given the win condition?
I just want to say, I think the build that Dino's running with is a very interesting build. A lot more of a Hex-focused build than last time. Last time, Para was rocking with the Brutal Strength and the Agitation. This time, Dino opted for a Ruin combined with Devour and Penti, a lot of Hex perks, a lot of perks that you want priority to cleanse, such as when Devour gets 3 stacks or when Ruin is in a low scenario, which will allow Penti to get a lot of value, and you also have Pain Runs on top of that. So some more gen regression. So this seems to be a build that will overall scale a bit better into the as we get later on into the match comparatively to Para. But Para did have a very aggressive start. That's not to say that Dino didn't have an aggressive start either. Dino honestly found Para quite soon, but it looks like Dino is looking to get those hooks, allow these unhooks to come early on, and then allow Devour to work his magic. And I wasn't paying good enough attention to realize that Dino has injured 2 people from all the way in Canada while they are sitting in Mexico City.
Yeah, Dino kind of going insane with the snipes right now, but Yeah, like you were saying, this Hex build is interesting, and it's exactly what I expect from an Unknown set, to be completely honest. I mean, Devour and, more importantly, Penti feel like almost bread and butter of an Unknown set. Unknown is so good at defending totems that Penti almost feels like a core perk, a staple perk. I mean, you kind of force survivors to cleanse Ruin like we saw last game, where they just don't have enough pressure to leave it up, and that is going to be a down onto Zeta, who is named, don't look at me right now. And that is going to be an immediate chase onto Para, who is our tunnel out. They already have staged to second hook. And, I mean, they don't really have much to work with here. This is not a strong pallet. They do manage to squeeze through Dino just in time, but now they're playing an extremely unsafe pallet. However, they do make the better of it, but unfortunately, Dino does cut them off. And that is probably going to be the death onto Para here at 3 gens. I mean, last game we saw the death at around 2 gens remaining, so 1 gen might not seem like a huge difference, but with this build in play, with Ruin, 3 Pain Rise stacks, and a Penti for later on, up Dino's sleeve, this is a very dangerous position. This is where Unknown thrives the most.
Yeah, and you have to consider the fact that Dino was able to get these artillery strikes, very accurate precision artillery strikes to injure survivors as they're working on generators. And he already has another down onto the Jake that was injured from before, was brought back up from the dying state, but was put it back in again by Don't Look at Me, the ace. And now that's an injure onto the ace again. Just a lot of pressure being exerted. That's going to be a pain res coming in, hitting one of those gens. Dino's in a pretty good state. I said that last game it felt like a bit of a swing back and forth of, Para's having a lot of early pressure, but the Chads are responding very well, but Para maybe gets another down in a good area, and then Chads respond. This time it kind of just feels like Dino is the one that's really controlling the pace of this match so far. Just the way that he's able to get these downs so quickly, and the ability to just hit these shots so accurately as well.
Yeah, Dino, I mean, like you said, ability to spread a lot of pressure. I do know Dino, for playing a lot of killers like Unknown, a lot of killers that have overwhelming amounts of map pressure, that have a lot of strategy put into them. So Dino kind of showing that they are in their element right now. I mean, we've seen how they've been getting these downs like clockwork, and the bounces like that, just such a core part of Unknown that Dino is showing, I mean, a lot of knowledge on. And if they are able to get this hit onto Zeo, that would be huge, but they do get the weaken removed and manage to make it to this 4 lane. Not a very strong tile, and that will be a hit coming through over the pallet. Unfortunate. Now they are kind of zoned to this 4 lane. They were not able to get enough distance, but they have at this point bought enough time that their teammates have been able to reset, and now they have this edge map filler, well, deep map filler to play around. And I mean, they're doing a pretty good job at it. They're not allowing this down to come through quickly. A very good vault coming in. Dino not quite reacting fast enough to deal with that. That was a good weekend, but we see, I believe that was Ruin getting cleansed there in the distance, which will ensure that Dino can get a stack at Penti, but we do find ourselves in a similar position to last game. The killer has no gen regression, but they do have something they can place down wherever they want, and they just have one more stack of Devour until they are able to insta down. So, game very much still going in Dino's favor, but Zeo putting up a very strong chase there, able to waste a lot of time.
Yeah, Zeo's pathing there was absolutely incredible, being able to cleanse themselves of the weakened effect multiple times in a row and avoiding all of Dino's shots. That is going to be the first Penti up, as cleansing Ruin is a double-edged sword as you get rid of Ruin, but you then have to deal with a 30% gen slowdown penalty, and kind of the same thing with Devour Hope, where, yeah, you get the unhook for free pretty much, but you also are giving Dino another stack of Devour, and unless you're very confident about which totem is Devour, that's gonna bite you in the butt really, really fast. We see the down finally coming onto Zeomati on the Atom, and that's gonna be another cleanse. It's gonna cleanse straight onto the Penti that was just up. So Penti didn't last very long, and the Ruin is gone now. So the only regression that Dino has to work with is finding a fresh onto the Jake and getting a pain res that way. Already got the weaken onto the Jake, and Jake doesn't really have much to work with, so they're probably just going to take the tag, and it's still going to keep the weakened effect. If Dino can get this down quick enough, he has so much pressure that I don't know how Noxes will really recover from this, despite the Atom absolutely lasting for a very long time, not a lot of stuff like happened in the background. Sure, some totems got cleansed, some maybe some gen pressure, but not enough for an entire gen to pop. And now that's the third stack of Devour. Don't look at me. The ace has to play this chase super carefully now, because one wrong misstep and allowing an M1 hit onto him, and that's just going to be his death.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Dino waiting with bated breath, waiting for that unhook prompt to go through so they could teleport back, leaving Jake slugged on the ground. And I mean, it almost feels like the survivor's expected at this point. He is playing so carefully into not letting an M1 come through right now, but unfortunately, right as I was saying that, he anticipated the UVX shot, and Dino will be getting that down and will be revealing Devour Hope. I mean, the first Penti stack did get cleansed really early, but the upside of it, if you're Dino, is that, I mean, you're about to ensure yourself the second one if the survivors know where the other totem is. They have to get rid of this Devour, otherwise you're playing a 3v1 at 3 gens with essentially permanent injuries and constant speed boosts onto the killer after a hook, and I mean, this is not quite going to be a down onto Zeo yet. Zeo has proven that they can hold their own and chase, but unfortunately they only have 1 health state here, and they're weakened, so it's kind of interesting to see how long this chase is really going to go, because I think this will just be a down, and that just leaves Jake as the last survivor standing, having to balance getting an unhook, and I mean, it just feels like an insurmountable amount at this point. There's not too much left to be done on the side of Noxes. You have to avoid having 10 hook stages total come through. So it feels like you're right now just playing for best result possible. You're trying to recover and show that your team can deal with situations like this, and especially with that Devour Hope being placed on the totem and the 4th stack coming through, it's feeling very, very rough for Noxes.
Yeah, all that Noxes can hope for is for one of them to run into the basement and potentially find the secret character hidden on the map, Bob the Builder, in order to repair all the gens left, but it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. That was patched out 5 patches ago. You're going to find another chase back directly onto Adam here, and it doesn't really matter who's getting chased here. The survivors, they have to deal with Devour still being up, so resetting isn't really there's something to do, and they don't really have a lot of gen pressure up. So much of the survivor's time so far has been spent just trying to recover from this, and we're gonna see a Mori coming out onto Ziamani with 5 stacks of Devour up, and that's gonna be an instant death onto Adam here. So now we only have 2 survivors left in a very unwinnable outcome here. I don't want to say it's over quite yet, but that's pretty much what I'm saying. It's kind of over at this point. I think even the Jake recognizes that this scenario that the team is in right now is just very not winnable for them. The ace is still trying though. Okay, never mind. He got swiped by a broken bottle, and his knees are now broken. He is now on the ground bleeding out. This is so sad. Can we throw a Popeye chicken sandwich for the ace? How sad. And there's going to be one final chase onto the Jake. Dino Melon obviously putting a very dominant performance up. Like I said earlier, Para's performance felt like a push and pull between the survivors and the killers, ending up with a win for the killers. This time around, it just felt like Dino had free reigns to exert as much pressure as he wants, and that's going to be Chad's with the set win, finishing it off with a Mori onto ace.
I mean, yeah, tonight's feeling like the night of the Moris. We have seen a decent few of these so far, especially with the new finisher Mori system out now, as of a few days ago. And yeah, closing out the match with a Mori, we will be moving on to our second set, which is Pyramid Head, with Chad's killing first. Please join us back here in a few minutes.
Welcome back, everyone, to Grindhouse Scrims Week 17. Here we have the second set between Chads and Noxes. We have Georgie coming out on the Pyramid Head, just in time for the release of the Silent Hill 2 remake. Very timely appearance to make. We see here a pretty standard build of running the Eruption plus the Pain Resonance, and then we have Corrupt to force survivors closer, and then the Agitation that Snapply loves so dearly. Here we see 3 survivors huddled up in a team meeting right beforehand, trying to get the team morale right before this set, but Georgie comes in and is going to interrupt that and making sure that the pep rally is over, getting a very nice M2 hit onto Para, not faking it this time, and we know that Para's on life just like last set, but that life's not taking them that far, and it's going to be another M2 hit. These are very, very quick hits, and while Para is not tormented, and it's not going to be caged, that still is going to end up with a Pain Res, which is arguably better than a cage. And especially since that you can control where this is going, and it's going straight into the basement. This is going to be very big. It's very hard to get a survivor out of the basement when a pyramid head is guarding the top entrance. So I want to know, Snapply, with the way that this set has started out, how do you think this will go?
I mean, a quick first chase is exactly what you can hope for a Pyramid Head. This is our first seeing of Corrupt Intervention during this matchup, and I mean, Georgie got a very, very well-timed down there, and like you said, a basement hook, and I mean, this build definitely favors the playstyle we're seeing from Georgie so far. He's going out to get that hook in the center of the map with Agitation, then going around with Eruption to apply it to as many gens as possible, while still making sure to keep tabs on that basement hook, just so that if he does manage to get it down in this time, he will be able to proc Eruption on several different gens. Unfortunately, not able to land the M2 onto Zeo yet. Just going to return to the basement and try to make any unhook here incredibly painful, as is the way for Pyramid Head. And that is going to be Georgie checking another gen with a lot of progress. I mean, Georgie had a lot of confidence in the first chase that was taken around here. Definitely knows how to run this title as Pyramid Head. Not quite able to get the hit, though, just yet. Going for another risky shot through the rock. Still not quite able to hit Don't Look At Me. And who will manage to get the stun, actually. They do eat the Tormented for that. But importantly, Para is going to go second stage in the basement right now. The Survivor is just not coming through with the time to rescue that. I wonder if they're going to do what they did last game. We're going to see two gens pop here in the distance instead of the rescue to try getting just as much done as possible as early as possible.
Yeah, now I have to say that so far Georgie is playing Pyramid Head a lot more respectfully than I think anyone else here would ever play. They are actually trying to go for M2 hits rather than just stabbing the sword in the ground and then just keep walking forward. You know exactly who you are, and if you do that, just know I think of you slightly less as a human being. But that's going to be another M2 hit onto the Jake, trying to go in for the unhook onto Para. And you said that they were willing to trade 2 gens for Para hitting stage 2. But do you think at this point it's going to look like they're just going to have to trade Para in general? They're just going to have to give Para over, because at this point they really can't have access to the basement. Georgie is guarding it, much like the Pyramid Head guards stuff in Silent Hill. I don't know, I've never played any of the games. I think that's what he does, but that's going to be someone running into the basement trying to go for the unhook. At least I think that's what the scratch marks indicate, but the scratch marks actually stop at the top of the basement. I'm not sure where they went. They probably just went in, saw the state that the basement was in, and just decided to nope, straight back. So that's not going to be an unhook coming onto Para, and instead that's going to be a hook onto the Jake here, trying to get a pain res to stop the progression on what is most likely the 1 gen that they just passed by. Now this is a very good state for Georgie to be in. A Survivor dead, 3 gens left, another Survivor on the hook, another Survivor injured. Much like last game, there's just a ton of pressure being applied to Survivors, and the Survivors just don't really have an answer for this.
Yeah, I mean, the combination of the Eruption and the Pain Resonance, along with Georgie's playstyle, is making it very difficult for the Survivors, and not going to get the stun in time that is going to be the hit through the pallet with the M2. We see in the distance the unhook does come in onto Gyro, but in return the hook does is taken onto Don't Look At Me. That is going to be another use of Pain Resonance, another hit onto the gens, and more reason for Agitation to be one of my all-time favorite killer perks, being able to just drag him in between these 2 gens that had a lot of progress, and being able to quickly monitor this gen. That was around 70% earlier, though probably has been hit by 1 or 2 Pain Reses at this point, and is a healthy amount of regression. That is going to be the chase onto Gyro, taking it to the Z-Wall. Will our Z-Wall champ be able to run him for a while on it? It doesn't quite look like it. Does manage to dodge the second M2 here, taking the chase towards the absolute edge of the map. That is going to be the down here in a few moments, just looping tires for as long as they can, and that is going to be the down and another Eruption proc. And I mean, yeah, we've gotten to that stage in the game where it almost feels like the Survivors, the gens are in a position where they don't have enough resources around them to have really long chases, so it just feels like we're trading hooks at this point, one after another. So that is another hook onto Gyro. They can go in and try finding a hook onto Don't Look At Me, and we're just seeing a back and forth, kind of similar to like the Unknown game, but this time, we do see a DC on the hook. Unsure what that was about. I believe we're going to play it out unless we see otherwise, but At this point, we are so far into the game that I do not believe that will warrant a restart of any sort, depending on what is shown. So this is going to be the chase on to Don't Look at Me at the crane here, and very strong tile to chase around. I mean, it's very hard for Georgie to get a shot through this, but with the Torment and the Killer Instinct, Georgie just going to be able to get the down around it, proving me wrong right after I said something.
The caster curse is strong with you today, Snapply, I just want to say. It appears that the Jake has gone off and has tried to access the Silent Hill. Again, I have played any of the games. I think that's what happens in those games, I'm not going to lie. But yeah, I think that, especially after the unfortunate DC onto the Jake, I think the survivors realized that, yeah, there is absolutely no hope of return here, and they're just gonna end up playing the chases out, just try to get a little more practice, so maybe next time they run into Pyramid Head they won't fall victim to the Silent Hill. Yeah, but this was a very dominant performance from Georgie, absolutely hitting all of the flicks that he's going for, again being a very respectful gentleman on Pyramid Head, unlike some of you people who play this character. And it just honestly felt, and at no point in this match did it really feel like that the survivors were gonna make a comeback of any sorts.
Yeah, Georgie definitely felt like they came into this map with a plan. I mean, they played around this build as perfectly as they could. I mean, very strong. I mean, they got use out of, I'd say, every single one of their perks. Corrupt to slow down that endgame a bit. Getting that first basement hook with Agitation, getting the kicks on almost every gen that had progress with Eruption, and then being able to play into his chase there and get downs quickly. And that is going to result in another 4K3, a very strong win condition for a Pyramid Head. And we will have to see how Noxes is able to respond to that coming up in our next round. Stay tuned.
Welcome back over into the second set of the Pyramid Head set between Chads and Noxes. Here we have Para coming from Noxes, killing against Chad survivors, and we see a build very similar to the last one, although with the addition of the Ruin instead of, I believe it was the Agitation that Georgie was running last time. So a little bit of a change. But overall, still just the same similar type of idea where you have Pain Res and you have Corruption for that general direction. You have Corruption to be able to push survivors towards you more. We're going to see a very early chase happening onto Remelia here for Chads. And it's going to be looking for another M2 hit. Hits it through the down to pallet. And it's going to break the pallet, zone Remelia, forcing them to play the crane. And it's going to be with the bounce landing to expertly dodging the M2 attack, and is going to survive for just a little bit longer. Manages to reach Shaq and is going to pass by the Silent Hill. I think that's what it's supposed to look like, but it's overall going to take the down next to Shaq. That's a very early down, around similar pace to last set, and with the same sort of hook location. So I'm very curious, Snappy, do you think that the addition of Ruin will affect the set in any way?
The absence of Agitation in this build is quite the outrage right now.
Okay.
What I'm impressed by right now is how many Silent Hill references you're finding in this game so far. Where you've just started Rem in the distance, and that is going to be the chase continuing onto Rem. And I mean, Para just looking to get this early tunnel out, and that is going to be another down onto Rem. Nothing like Decisive Strike being ran in a Pyramid Headset, so that will be a second note coming in shortly. And I mean, first chase did not go as quickly as we saw last game, but Para still getting a very quick second hook on the board, and this could be a very quick death if Rem is just, if that tunnel out continues soon after the next unhook. The survivors will have to play very carefully into this. They do catch, I honestly don't know who this is. This is Georgie on the Fong Min, and they are caught in the corner working one of the gens. They do take a very quick M1. They are going to make it to Shaq, but I mean, Para can just pull up their power here. Georgie gonna run through the pallet, but Para expertly guesses that they're camping the corner. They're waiting to pull the pallet down, and that is going to be the down onto Georgie. Chase now going on to Rain here out of 4 lane, and that was Hayden on the Saga, just spotted at the corner there. Para has sight on all 4 survivors right now. Survivor on second hook just chilling there. Ruin still up. I mean, this is exactly what Para wants right now.
Yeah, if you were to tell me that, if you were to blur the name of this killer, I wouldn't think this was Para on the killer. I think this was Dwight Jackson, the way that they're able to get these slugs and for pressure. Uh, Georgie's gonna be off the ground now, and this is a very interesting start for Para here. Romelia is looking like she's about to actually just die on the hook here, and despite it being a 4K3 Tycon, a 4K4 win con, it honestly feels like Para might actually be able to get this. I mean, a death kill onto Romelia very quickly. Obviously, that's going to be... I believe that's like multiple survivors become the generator over there, but opting to not immediately interrupt it. And I lost my composure earlier because it looked like Para was trying to like the M2 flick meme because I keep mentioning the Silent Hill games, but that's going to be instead being pulling Georgie out of a locker. Not the best place to hide against a Pyramid Head, and that's gonna be another hook for Para. Now you have Hayden, who's currently injured, and then you have Rain still up and still healthy. But yeah, this is actually just a ton of pressure for Para right now. It looks like if Para is able to continue this, we could either see a tie at the set or maybe even a win. But a 4K4 win con is a very tight win con, especially on Pyramid Head.
I mean, yeah, you have to prevent the survivors from popping any more gens. However, I mean, 3 injuries on the board, a torment onto Hayden, a hit onto Rain coming through, and immediately pivoting back towards Shaq, trying to find the progress on these gens, as they know Ruin, once again, still eating away at these gens. We see the bloodstains. Hopefully, if this is Georgie, Georgie has a bit more success evading the killer this time, and it is Georgie. Don't hop in a locker there, bud. Keep running. Lead this chase on as long as you can. And you have to get another gen pop. That is imperative, but Georgie going to get hit through the wall here. Para still has a pain res reserved on Georgie here. So they will be able to limit what progress the survivors did gain from that chase there. And Para going to pivot back towards this gen. They don't... they actually do find Rain here. Another injured survivor caught with very little in the way of resources around here. I mean, this is just a very strong position for Para to be in. Even if Hayden pops another gen here, like you said, that would just be the tie condition achieved. But Rain winning a lot of 50s here at the bus and just having the patience of God, not vaulting there. However, I think we're almost ready to see a wrap here. The question will be, does Hayden pop this corner gen before Para arrives and make it into a tie? Or do they play for the long game here and try unhooking one of their teammates possibly?
Yeah, unfortunately, the hook onto Georgie actually causing him to scream, forcing him to lose his mewing streak. Absolutely unfortunate. Can we get F's in chat for this? But yeah, Hayden, the last survivor up, is tormented and is injured. Georgie's time on the hook is slowly counting down. If I were Hayden, honestly, I would just... That's what be sticking a gen. We know that the Tycon for this is only a 4K3. And they might have a lot of progress on a gen, but this Ruin is actually kicking in pretty hard right now, especially if... all the gens that they're working on very early on, they have to get off of it, obviously, to recover from all the slug pressure, people getting hooked and stuff. And those gens have just been regressing progressively over time. Rain is still left on the ground, bleeding out, much like probably one character in Silent Hill has done that before. I'm fairly sure. I haven't done my research, but I'm confident in that statement, probably. And I think we saw Hayden running in the distance, but Para deciding not to follow that trail. I could be seeing things, but we have found Rain once again on the floor. And I think Para is confident enough, knowing that Hayden isn't on a generator anymore, to not want to stick around Rain's body for too much, and is still just trying to look for this Saga here. And is going to end up finding the Saga with a Sprint Burst 99 ready to go. Can Para hit a nice shot onto the Hayden, and apparently Hayden was so excited that he caused a slight nuclear reaction at the corner of the pallet there, trying to do something. But that is going to be a cage onto Hayden, and if Para finds Rain once again, that's going to be a 4K4, beating Georgie's quite excellent performance on the Pyramid Head, matching and even outperforming it to give the survivor, to give Noxes the win on the Pyramid Head set and tying this up 1-1.
Yeah, that will ensure the go to our Chucky set. And yeah, in that last chase, I mean, Para using their power to split Adam and cause a bit of an explosion during that chase. I don't know if that's something that happens in Silent Hill. You would have to tell me, even though you've never played it. You seem to be an expert at it, from what I can tell, but that is going to be the wrap here. 4K, 4 gens. I mean, you have to think of the morale boost this is going to give Noxes going to the next game. They have the confidence coming in from this game, and they are on the killer first for next round. Chucky Dead Dog Saloon, like we saw in our previous matchup tonight, is a pretty strong killer, very lethal, very capable of holding on to gens there. It's going to be kind of a toss-up here. I mean, the two killers we've seen so far, despite being on the same map, are incredibly different. And Chucky, I feel like, isn't even that comparable to either of the two killers we've seen tonight. We're seeing a very big spread. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the killer for Noxes plays this coming up here in a few minutes.
Welcome back, everyone, to Grindhouse Scrims Week 17. Here we have the final set of Noxes versus Chads, which is the good guy. Do not be confused by the name. This is not a very good guy. Here we see Para on the Chucky running a very interesting build. But the Pain Res and the Eruption, we've seen before. The Agitation, I know Snappy's looking at that, and they are actually frothing at the mouth with absolute joy. But then we also have the Call of Brine on top of that, for a little bit of information, and also some extra gen regression whenever they want to apply Eruption. So, I'm very curious as to what do you think about this build, Snappy, and honestly, and how do you think the set will, like, go?
I am, as you said, frothing at the mouth at the Agitation, and I'm ready to sit down and explain in one short paragraph why it's a good choice on this map. But no, in all seriousness, I mean, this is definitely an interesting build. We, once again, don't see any corrupt intervention being run. I mean, it feels like tonight a lot of the killers have just been relying on these really quick early chases, their quick hits, and I mean, on a map like Dead Dog, it's very interesting not to see corrupt intervention because of how strong the main building is. This is a famed main building for how much of a pain it is to run as the killer. And I mean, Chucky might be able to counter this, especially with a well-placed dash, but not quite able to reach all the way up the stairs and get the down onto Dame. But luckily for Para here, we do know that Survivors had progress on main beforehand. They had been working on this gen, and they're likely being pressured off it by the presence of Chase here. But, I mean, yeah, Dame just has so much distance here. Para going to go around, possibly try to catch somebody who's working on the gen, or even try cutting off Dame here at main. We are seeing some insane pathing here, and it works. The pathing does cut Dame off, not quite able to get the down, though, does smack right into the side of a barrel. Cannot feel very good on his noggin, but Dame continuing this first chase even longer, making it all the way towards the deep campsite side of the map where we see Survivors like to die very often. I mean, even for a long first chase, we did not see any gens pop so far, probably because of the proximity of that chase to main. Though I am corrected now, we do have a first gen popping of the distance. Caster's Curse coming in again.
Yeah, no, that chase was very well done by Para, being able to really recognize the pathing that Dame wanted to do and then adjust their pathing to cut them off. And then they cut them off pretty well. They cut them off akin to how you would slice off a slice of bread from a freshly baked loaf of bread, but now that we have Dame here in this corner, this is a very important corner to hold as a killer. This, what I've dubbed the Cactus Corner, oftentimes has many gens spawning around it, and you also have a very important gen in the Gallows gen. So I'm wondering if the Survivors, all the Survivors are obviously aware of this as well. So I'm wondering if they will be able to cut into this, like, sort of match like a loaf of bread.
Someone say bread? I'm in. So now we're going to be leaving Rain and going back to Hook, where Dame has just been unhooked. Chase still going to be brought into the Gallows area. Harvey going to be taking a hit for Dame, but still able to charge that Slice and Dice for a nice 2-tap onto Carvey. That is going to be a good amount of pressure for Farah, while we still get the tunnel out on Dame as a second generator pops in the distance. Not going to be able to get the scamper onto the window, letting go just a little bit too early. Now, still going to be chasing Dame here. Dame doing a really good job preventing this tunnel out and taking Chase away from active gens. Now going to be probably taking Chase towards the main area and all the buildings here, as there's only one gen here compared to like 3.
I mean, yeah, and right now, Dame doing an amazing job at surviving this chase right now. I mean, not giving away anything for free. They managed to win the vault there and not get hit, but I think, have we just caught 2 survivors or no, we have not. I'm just going slightly insane after Chucklenut's gameplay. That is going to be the hit onto Dino Melon. Para now going to be trying to scope out another survivor. They do find Rain here, who is the last healthy survivor. Carvey is still being slugged on the ground as we speak, and we see a mysterious sound notification coming from the upstairs gen here. Para going to go investigate that, see if they can figure out who was on it, and figure out if they can get another slug going or another hook on the board if it's Dame. Para just very intent on getting their tunnel out. They do find Dame here at the water tower. This is kind of ideal if you're Para, but they are down to 3 gens at this point. They have to be careful. Eventually, if more gens pop and they don't quite have the tunnel out onto Dame, they have to consider spreading their hook stages. But fortunately for Para, they do still have a decent gen set up around the side of the map, and with the agitation in play, they can get this basement hook safely and not really have to worry about much in this area of the map. They do get the full reset off. Chad's actually having insane efficiency on that, ensuring that they can go into this, tackling this 3-gen, tackling the unhook in basement with 3 healthy survivors in play, though that might be soon to be 2. Dino does get caught out on this edge map tile, but they do manage to get the stun onto Para here and make a bit of distance. The question will be, will the save come in while Dino is leading Killer on so close to Shaq? And I think Para is expecting that. Turning back, going towards Shaq, seeing if there is scratch marks, going down into the basement, but there is not just yet. Para going into Scamper, trying to figure out where the survivors are, going into Hideco, trying to figure out where the survivors are. They do catch Carvey out, who did not see Chucky over the grass there, a bit too short to see. Going to be a tag onto Carvey and pivoting straight back to basement, trying to prevent an unhook from happening here, but in the nick of time, they do get Dame at the last moment of safety, and the FTP coming out might be slightly unwise. If Rain is down in the basement, that could be kind of rough, but it looks like Para has eyes for no one but Dame right now.
Yeah, absolutely. With all this chase, with all the chases that Para's been able to find and really end this quickly, exerting a lot of pressure, forcing survivors to take these resets. I wonder if Ruin would have been a lot better to take here. With Ruin, you can just allow these chases to happen, and using all of these generators to just regress naturally, as obviously with a killer like Chucky that can find chases and end them rather quickly. Not as quickly as like an S tier set, obviously, but still very fast. A child running at you with a knife at Mach 30 will, you know, slice your ankles, so something to watch out for. So I wonder if the addition of Ruin might have been a better choice here as compared to Call of Brine. Here we see another tag onto Dino, and it's going to be also finding Rain, who cannot be reset as they use the FTP onto Dame, and is currently broken. This is going to be a pretty fast down onto Rain. It's got to be Eruption on the generator that they just kicked. Eruption is much akin to that of a sourdough starter. You just set it up and you let it like sit for a while, and then, you know, maybe an explosion will happen here or two, and yeah, that seems to be extra aggression on this generator.
Yeah, and that is going to be a hook inside of the 3-gen. I'm kind of questioning Chad's strategy here. They decided to work the 3-gen with 2 injured survivors, and I mean, that went about as well as you'd expect. There was a down inside the 3-gen, there's now a hook inside the 3-gen, and honestly, that could have gone a lot worse had Para double back and possibly tried going for another down inside the 3-gen, but with 3 gens remaining, we have a death, we have a hook in the 3-gen, we have Para looking around for the reset. They have actually found where the reset happened. They could possibly get a very quick down onto Carvey here, and that just leaves Dino standing, having to get the unhook onto Rain, having to have gotten to the other side of the map, and having to make it out of there alive after they do get the unhook without going down and without giving out too much for free.
Yeah, currently Dino Mountain is stealthing out, trying to either save either of his teammates or harvesting it on a gen. That's going to be unhook onto Rain. Para left a freshly baked loaf of banana bread by the hook, and that dragged Dino out of hiding because, you know, no one can really resist that freshly baked loaf of banana bread. And despite the unhook coming in, that's going to be an instant down again onto Rain. And then Dino is just going to have to bounce back and forth. He just picked up Rain, now it's going to go back to Carvey. And because of Chucky's speed, especially with the power, they're able to match this back and forth nature. Right now, this does not look like a very recoverable position for the survivors of Chads, especially with that insane curve onto Dino. Para is cutting him up like you would slice a bagel early in the morning, trying to spread that cream cheese on it. But unfortunately, does not miss misses the second hit overall. He's going to play this very not safe palette. This is a very 50-50 palette, but it looks like Dino was looking to win the 50-50, but unfortunately Para ate his breakfast that morning of the delicious freshly toasted bagel and is going to get the down.
What kind of bread would you say each survivor is in this match? I'm just curious.
Well, Carvey obviously with the yellow jacket, resembling that of a freshly baked loaf of banana bread, maybe. Rain's fit as Ace is a lot darker, so maybe just a regular slice, maybe sourdough, but someone left in the oven for too long. Dino is very green, so maybe one of those festive, sort of like maybe a fruit cake of sorts, because I'm not really sure what kind of, you know, bread would incorporate both a dinosaur and a melon on top of it. Maybe a fruitcake. And then Dame would have been, I don't know, maybe...
He was the tunnel out. He had to be like a slice of chocolate cake or something because he was
maybe,
the tunnel
yeah,
out.
yeah,
like
like
it has
a...
to be something extremely appetizing.
Right, but it's like, but that's not bread though. Like, it has to be like a bread object. So maybe like a English muffin, you know, like a nice appetizer.
Fair enough, fair enough. Regardless, the slugging train is still going. Para has gotten a hook onto Dino, down onto Rain, and they have a shrewd idea of where Carvey was last seen around the back of the main building. And going to be searching for this last down. I mean, a 4K3 is an incredibly strong result for Chucky. He's somebody we typically see maybe around a 4K1 happening on a map like this, possibly even out. So this is definitely not the position you exactly want to be in if you're Chads. It is going to be an incredibly difficult one to recover from. Their best hope right now is that they can probably get the pickup onto Rain, as Rain can freely crawl across the map as much as they need to right now. So it's going to be kind of a rough ride here for Chads going forward.
Yeah, Para doing an absolutely good job of establishing pressure very early on and maintaining it with that very early tunnel out. And we see Carvey trying to go for the unhook onto Dino, but unfortunately he will not. He's going to fall to the bread knife of Chucky here. And it's going to be the set finish for Para. Overall, a 4K3 result, a very nice result. Oh, I ran DC'd early. We'll see if Chads' kill will be able to match that absolute S-tier bakery performance. Welcome back, everyone, to Grindhouse Week 17 Scrims. Here we have Dino Melon coming out for the side of Chads on the good guy. Opening up the bakery once again, getting all these fresh loaves of bread, croissants, and baguettes, whatever you want. Here we see a build that's quite somewhat, that's very differentiates from the last build a lot. Here we see the addition of what I talked about last time with Ruin and Undying, because obviously a killer like the good guy, who has a lot of this like chase power and everything, being able to force survivors off of generators, allowing that passive aggression to kick in, it's very pretty important. And then we see the corrupt in play as well. Unlike last time, we didn't have a corrupt, which is ends the sort of a bit of the corrupted route we had for a bit. We had it both times on Pyramid Head, but we didn't see it at all with. Or actually, no, we did. I'm just lying at this point. So Snapply, I want to know what do you think about the inclusion of the Ruin and Dying pairing this time around?
I think, like you were saying last game, we have different types of bread. This is like, the last game's build was toast. This is toast with the butter on it. This is Ruin Undying being brought into a Chucky set. This is a killer that can generate a lot of pressure, like we saw last game in a beautiful down. Beautiful slice and dice onto Gyro here, giving Dino their first down. But yeah, it's the thing on top. You have Chucky, who's a really good killer at spreading pressure, and you have the exact thing that complements that, forcing survivors off the gens, getting hooks in good places to deny the survivors pressure. Sprint burst going to be saving Zio here from a very nasty slice and dice coming in from Dino. And I mean, with this win condition, Dino is, I mean, having a very strong start to that. They are getting injuries, they are getting a very quick down, and they are hitting some nasty slice and dices, showing exactly why this killer was these teams' tiebreaker. I mean, both of them clearly showing confidence on this killer, with the amazing result coming in from Noxes and the amazing hits coming in from Dino. But the struggle for Dino right now, you can only let one more hit up until you're at tie condition. And at that point, it's going to be incredibly rough, and that's going to be the hit through the window onto Gyro. An incredibly nasty slice and dice once again. I mean, Dino kind of chilling right now. They have this mid-gen locked down. They have another down locked in, and the heal does come through onto Zio, but this is going to be another hook in the middle of the map, and if Dino can just keep pressure on these gens, he may be able to come out with something in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Dino is slicing and dicing these survivors, much like you would slice open a English muffin and get ready to turn into a sandwich. He's absolutely precise with these plays here. And so we have a hook right outside of the main building and a pretty good gen spread over here. You can check the water tower generator. A little bit of a controversy depending on if you want to call it 5 or 8. I personally think 11 is the right choice, but to each their own. And it's going to be another down onto Para on the Bill. Bill definitely is a bit old, so I don't know, maybe he also wouldn't be bread. He'd be like one of those like stale, like it'd be like hardtack, I think, an equivalent to it, just a really old biscuit. But this is gonna be a chase right back onto the Jake. I think a bit of a standoff on the Gallows, presumably with balanced landing, which might save his life, but no, he will still be hit even through the bounce landing. Gonna be dying under a pallet, maybe a pallet save. No pallet save coming out for Jake. There's gonna be another hook on to Jake, and I believe that's actually death hook. Yeah, so a death at 4 gens and a down also. You mentioned earlier that Dino can only have 1 more gen pop, and at this rate, I actually think that he might actually be able to overcome this win condition.
Yeah, he found the slug onto pair here. I mean, he does still have 2 healthy survivors unaccounted for, possibly on one of these street gens, but I mean, we can think of it like a baking sheet with different like bits of dough on it. The dough in the middle, the gen in the middle, is very exposed. It's going to get cooked very quickly, but then you have the ones at the corners that are cooked slightly slower, and that's going to be a bit harder for Dino to defend. And I mean, we might see if that plays a role in this. We have the main building gen, we have this one inside of houses that are going to be a bit of a pain for Dino to get to, and that is the main building gen popped in his face, and it's raining aces off of the main building. That is Don't Look at Me falling directly on top of Dino's head and going down right after. I mean, that was a bit of burnt bread right there, a bit of burnt toast there. Slightly unfortunate scenario to be put in, and now this is going to be a chase onto Zio. Let's see if they can get to the hook in time and get the unhook. I do believe they'll be able to possibly not even make it a trade here, depending on how well Dino is able to get this hit. They do go straight around the rock. That is a second win. That might actually be kind of huge for the survivors, but this is probably going to be an impending down onto Zio here. They have Shaq to play around, but they don't have Shaq pallet, which is kind of a big part of Shaq. So yeah, that is going to be a down onto Zio here, and that will be the unhook onto Don't Look at Me.
Yeah, absolutely. He was looking between Zio and Para, like you would trying to decide what to put on a sandwich. Now we're deciding, ooh, to put the mayo here, or maybe go with a ham over turkey. Nobody knows whether or not to chase the survivor with the second wind, trying to stop the second wind from happening, or just to go for the trade of the unhooker. Now we're gonna play this 50-50 pallet, losing the 50-50 overall. Gonna go with just an M1 hit, and then gonna wrap around the building. We see Para is at the corner, but Chucky is a very fast boy, drifting around the corner like he's in a 90s fucking sports car commercial, but will not end up landing the hit. Unfortunately, Para is gonna be playing this pallet here. Once again, just vaulting back and forth. Para does not have a lot to work with here. Exit here. That's gonna be the down onto Para, but in the meantime, that's going to reset onto both Don't Look at Me and Zio Madi here. But then again, at this point we know that no one's on a gen at all. We're chasing Para, the other 2 are resetting, so obviously the ruin is going to take into effect. So Nugs, I really want to know what your opinion is on what the future of the set is going to look like. Do you think that new survivors might even be able to pop 1 more gen, even push it past Tycon, and just be able to win this game outright?
I personally do not believe so. During the chase of Para, we had the full reset onto Zio, so Ruin doing its work on every generator. None of them was being worked on, so Ruin's just active, bringing those generators closer and closer to 0%. And because of that, 90 seconds for a generator is a really long time, especially against a killer like Chucky. This guy has chase potential similar to S tiers. If you guys saw the Oddstarva and Hens showcase between Chucky and Spirit, they both performed insanely similar, way more similar than you guys would think. But that is going to be a very quick down onto Zio. Don't Look at Me. It's just him against the world here. Just gotta either A, stick a gen that Dino is unsuspecting for you to stick, or hiding to try and make this either 3v1 or likely 2v1 based off of Paris timer, at least a little bit feasible. So it's very difficult for these survivors' positions. Dino's just searching for this last survivor, and it's very much looking like an overall tie.
Yeah, you forgot to mention the third possible outcome. Chucky's short. He's only like a doll. Why don't survivors just like kick him, like punt him like a football? Like I'm pretty sure someone like David King could absolutely just punt like Chucky over the walls of the Dead Dog Saloon, like past like the walls and just go straight into the void. Like I don't know why they're not doing that.
This is where I need to bring up my balancing changes for Chucky. I have said since the start, if he misses an attack, you should be able to just punt him. Just give him a big punt, knock him over, and stun him for a few seconds.
Well, there is no David in this game to actually punt him.
Okay, yeah, but like all the survivors in general, they're doing this for an eternity. They're like walking around. At some point, you think like this is a lot of cardio to get in. Like you can sprint from one side of a map to the other side, and the survivors are not going to get like exhausted at all. This is a lot of cardio they're doing. Like surely they're building those leg muscles. So surely everyone has the ability. Even someone like Quentin has the ability to just punt Chucky into the sun.
So, adding on to what's happening here, what we are seeing right now is attempted fresh slugs here. I mean, the only hope at this point for a tie was to get a for a win on the side of Noxes was to get a fresh bleed out, but unfortunately, Zio has been found, and we saw the very unfortunate find of Don't Look at Me hiding in a bush was discovered eventually by the Chuckle Nuts, and that is going to be a secured final fresh hook, so this bleed out will not even matter if it comes through.
Yeah, no, this... As I said earlier, early in the match, Dynamelon had the oven preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. I use Fahrenheit, screw you to use the metric system, and Imperial units superior. But yeah, he had that oven preheated, and slowly but surely, all the doughs in the oven were just rising. It been a nice even bake over the top, and now he's adding that final touch of that little like knife indent cross thing that you put on the top, and then like it opens up as the as the bread is cooking. Like we're seeing that. And this is just a very good like bakery performance coming out from Dino.
Yeah, we're now going to be trying to track down this final slug. I mean, we would prefer not to have to wait another over 2 minutes to get this, as I do not believe this is a fresh hook, so it will not impact the result whatsoever if this does end up bleeding out. So Dino just trying to find where they have curled off to, and does eventually find him in the corner. So will be Don't Look at Me being the last hook of the game and securing a tie here.
Yeah, unfortunately, Don't Look at Me ends up as like the one cookie that like it's like in like the corner of the pan that you kind of forget about. So like after you put everything out away, you're just like, oh, I left that one in that spot a little too long, and now there's a little burnt edge on the end, but like it's still good. Alright, welcome back everyone. So we had a bit of a mistake on the side of the Shattered Crystal survivors. They unfortunately brought an offering that brought the basement into the main building. Now, if you look around the Wrecker's Yard map, you will notice a distinct lack of anything resembling a main building. That's because there isn't one. The basement's supposed to be in the shack. So, unfortunately, we will not... during that initial finding, scientists were actually analyzing the footage as we were in intermission, and they couldn't really answer the question of if the spirit was
Okay,
freaking
nope,
out.
gonna cut you off right there. Gotta cut you off right there. That is a beautiful stun coming in from Jay during the first chase, buying time for their team. There's no such science going on in this match. Nothing you have heard is true, except that this will be the first down going into the deep 3 side of the map. And that also, Paradigm's kind of cooking right now with the new Dragon's Grip that we saw recently buffed to be extra powerful. So let's see if that has any effect on this match coming in later into the game.
We have our first down already coming in onto Jade, our first hook as well. And we do see a change of build compared to last time due to this little mishap with the blueprints. The construction workers brought the wrong one, unfortunately. So now we see sloppy Dragon's Grip Eruption Corrupt instead of our Hex-focused build we saw last match, Devour, Ruin, Undying Corrupt.
Yeah, unfortunately, that was a building mistake that not even Bob the Builder could fix himself. This is a very unique build, as it, instead of playing this sort of like Hex Defender build, in which later on in the match, these Hexes really ramp up in power, and they become a lot more of a priority for the survivors. this is more of a gen kick build, similar to like the meta that we had before this meta, when we had stuff like Overbrine and the old eruption really in the meta. And as I said, Snapply, the newly buffed Dragon's Grip, I really want to see it get value, because Dragon's Grip is one of my personal favorite perks because of just it's honestly kind of a funny perk to just get off and, you know, get the quick down. Speaking of a quick down, this might be a quick down back onto Jade, as Jade only has to play this palette, and unfortunately the long side of this will offer no safety for them. It's going to be another down and triggering eruption onto the stack generator that was kicked earlier. This is starting off pretty good for Paradigm. Already having a survivor on Death Hook, only one generator is popped, but unfortunately they do not have Pain Rest, so this won't accumulate to any more gen regression for this chase.
Yeah, but nevertheless, we are going to see Paradigm phasing right towards where they saw the eruption go up. They do catch a bit of progress on that hill gen, but they know that Shack is where the survivors have been focusing, and they can place their eruption and Dragon's Grip right here and be waiting nearby just in case we hear that little sound notification that tells us the survivor has triggered their trap card. Now, Paradigm actually does have quite the gen spread around this hook. I mean, both of the gens right next door are kind of high progress, so they will have to worry about that, but now is the time to see if this Dragon's Grip is going to get value. The survivor, no doubt panicking and telling their team, get the unhook now, distract the killer, and that is exactly what they do. The unhook is going to distract Paradigm. The insta-down is not going to come through. They are instead going to be taking their chase back onto Jade, trying to find where they snuck off to and try to, importantly, get this tunnel out. Though I do believe the survivor right here is Quentin, but they do catch Jade in the distance, and they are going to be initiating a chase with them. Jade going to have to buy as much time as possible, ensure that Shack Gen can get popped, and hopefully that Hill Gen as well.
Yep, it's all on Jade here to bring their team enough time to be needed to at least get some gens done during the chase. But unfortunately, we see that quick down onto Jade, and that will be our first death at 4 gens. Maybe even 3 if they're able to pump that one out, but it looks like Dwight gonna be leaving that gen very close to completion. Not gonna be able to pop it before Paradigm can hook Jade and go back to the gen. So that will be a guaranteed death at 4 gens. 2 gens, high progress, likely going to pop within the next 2 minutes. So now we find Dwight not going to be chasing them, just going to be accepting that info and looking for anyone around the Shack generator here. Now, looking towards the 9th side of the map, we do find Quentin pump Buki here in this new 4-lane tile introduced with this mid-chapter. A nice hit happens, and now going to be leaving, going back to this hill gen. Paradigm does not want to lose this gen, wants to keep that gen pressured for as long as possible, because they know that Dwight is going to be wanting that. That is another gen popping at 1, and now it's up to Dwight to make sure this 3v1 is a good one.
Yeah, and I don't know if you noticed this earlier, Nugs, but back when Paradigm wanted to kick the Shack generator, the indicators telling Paradigm that they only had a limited amount of kicks left on Shack generator appeared. That is one of the downsides to a build that is only reliant on the now gen kick related perks, is that now you only have a limited amount of kicks you can have per generator. So after some point, sure, it might take a while, but you cannot kick gens anymore, and that is an absolutely smart use of the Shack palette, pre-dropping it ahead of time, not allowing the Spirit to phase in on them while they're completing it, and just allowing to pop the gen right in their faces. It's going to lower the if all the survivors were to just magically die right now from the bubonic plague or nuclear bomb or whatever dropping on the trial, now that's going to be a 4K2 rather than a 4K3, which could alter the favor of the overall outcome of this match.
Yeah, it's going to rely, though, right now, I mean, yeah, we have 2 survivors standing right now. We have Invea on the hook, and we have a down coming in onto Pump Bookie, and that is going to be the jump right behind them getting complete. I mean, kudos to Quentin there. They did buy plenty of time to get this gen pop, and I mean, a 4K1 is nothing to turn your head at. That is a pretty good result against a killer like Spirit. And I mean, yeah, like we were saying with the gen regression stuff, with the gen so reliant on gen kicks, there's only so much that can be done until the gen gets covered. And this will end up being just a 4K1 unless we have any perks, but I do not believe that the survivors have anything that they can use right now. I do not recall entirely if Deli is allowed against Spirit, but if so, we will be seeing shortly whether or not it got to be activated.
Deliverance is, as a matter of fact, one of those perks that are banned against the Spirit, so we will not be seeing those. Bill and Quinton are just going to be dying on this hook here, just nice and alone. Maybe even together, given how close their hook timers are. But 4K1 is kind of an expected result for Spirit, as because those chases are very quick. You're often not going to see outs unless the chases take too long, in which this was a similar conversation if you were here for Noxes versus Chads with Chucky, but that will be the DC to save some time. We will be back for the second game here to see if Shattered Crystal's killer can do better. We'll see you then.
Welcome back, everyone, to Grindhouse Scrims. Here we have the killer on the side of Shattered Crystals coming in to kill the survivors of Renegades. As you remember from last time, the condition to win is a 4K2, which on the Spirit is an achievable result. However, I don't think anyone told Mystic about what the win con is, because they have brought Noed into this set, which, if he gets to that point, it doesn't really matter if you're going to get down to that point, as it's not going to get you the win. So Mystic is pretty much going to play this with the entire perk down. They're opting for Ruin. Never mind, they're not opting for Ruin anymore. I lied. They're now playing with 2 perks in total. They're playing with Sloppy Butcher and they're playing with Eruption. So as we continue our scientific investigation to the Spirit, I'm really curious as to you guys, what do you think about this build? Because at this point, I kind of jinxed that, but you really are only playing with Eruption and Sloppy.
Yeah, it's kind of rough how early that Ruin was found. I went on a kind of rant about this with the first matchup, on why I kind of genuinely don't believe hexes on Wreckers are that good. And that's coming from the totem nerd side of me, knowing every single spawn and every tile when it comes to Wreckers. And I just feel like every single time that there's been hexes that I've been a part of, I've just been finding them at the beginning of the game. They just haven't been in the game for the first 5 gens, aka the entire game. But with Sloppy and Eruption, we are going to have slower heals if they reset in the first 90 seconds. For the people, so Sloppy's kind of not there anymore, and then Eruption to take 10% off of another gen after a down once it is kicked. So I'm kind of curious to see how this is going to go compared to the other build that we saw.
Yeah, I mean, playing with 2 perks at this point, the game is certainly difficult. I mean, 2 gens popping in the distance. We saw the For the People play come through. That honestly didn't accomplish too much. We did see a hit onto Paradigm. Soon after, we see a 3rd gen pop in the distance. I mean, the survivors on the side of Renegade are definitely putting up a very good showing right now. They extended that first chase way longer, got Ruin out of the way, and now we're down to 2 gens as the first hook is coming in. Definitely not exactly what you want if you're Shattered Crystals, but again, Spirit, one of the S tier killers, able to have very quick chases if something goes wrong for the survivors, or if you manage to get something going on the killer side. I mean, it's incredibly unpredictable, especially with another injury on the board. There is definitely still something Mystic that can do here to turn the game around. And like we've been saying with the Sloppy Butcher, I mean, these injuries are going to take extra long to heal besides Merlin's. I mean, that was dealt by For the People, so Sloppy Butcher will not affect that whatsoever. However, each injury they give will mean a lot more than normal. It will mean that they have to either wait out the Sloppy Butcher timer or just heal straight through it, and it will waste a lot of time on the survivor side. But to do that, they have to give away free hits, and that is something they've been doing a great job at not doing so far.
Well, I argue it's less about avoiding free hits and more of the Spirit not taking the free hits that they're being given. We're going to see a flashlight shown directly into the Spirit's eyes as they break the pallet, and uniquely enough, they're not really going for the tunnel out onto Paradigm here, who's been hooked already. They're going to instead shift their focus over to Prick, and it makes a little bit of sense considering that like at this point, I don't like the condition to win here is that you need to kill every survivor like without another gen popping, and without ruin, without eruption, like without a really good gen spread even, this does not seem very likely to accomplish at this point. That opening chase was just kind of brutal. Like you said earlier that the For the People didn't get a lot of value, but I'd argue it kind of did because Mystic still the For the People person got out of there really fast, and Mystic still just went on to Paradigm, giving just another health state basically. So that opening chase was just kind of brutal for Mystic, and now in this chase they're just eating pallet after pallet because a lot of the map wasn't used in that original chase. It was very much condensed to one part of the map, and now we see here that Guani is just bringing Mystic all the way over to the part of the map that none of the generators are on. So this chase is ultimately still good for in the side of Renegades, because you see another gen's gonna pop. That's WinCon is no longer achievable now. It's only one for Tycon. We're gonna see Guani play around the Z wall. We'll see if they are built like Spitz or not, and the answer is maybe. I'm not sure honestly.
We've been seeing a lot of chases getting taken to the Z-Wall today. They did actually successfully cause one whiff to come through. They will eventually be taking hit and going back towards the buses. This is still a decently strong tile. We see the last gen popping. Noed is going to be activated, and I assure you the survivors most likely do not expect a Noed coming through because of the win condition. This certainly will take them by a bit of surprise here. And it looks like Mystic going to possibly getting a slug turn going. No, just going to opt to get the pick up on Guani here and bring them towards possibly an exit. I mean, the exit gates are not ideally placed for Mystic right now. We might honestly be seeing a 3 out and a Noed cleanse in the background as well, meaning that the survivors can go for this save without having to worry too much. I mean, this has been a very strong survivor performance from Renegade. It almost feels like they've been everywhere at once. We got the cleanse on Bruin right off the bat. We got 3 gens pop. We got the For the People play. We got the Noed cleanse right after endgame started. I mean, they've just been on top of things.
Yep, and Mystic committing to Paradigm, allowing the unhook to happen for free, and now it's just a matter of fact of if they can W key to the gate. Shack Pallet was never broken at the beginning of the game. When that For the People happened, gonna be breaking it, doesn't have their power, and with that 10% speed boost off of the hook for 10 seconds, they're just able to not make up that distance because Spirit is a 110 killer. So this is looking like a 2-stage game entirely. Renegade's playing this insanely well. Gonna be offering that flashlight as a gift for Mystic here. And now it's just time for Paradigm and Guani to leave, and that will be the 2-stage result on the Spirit. We shall see the next set, which was Shattered Crystal's pick, upcoming shortly.
Welcome back everyone to Grindhouse Scrims Week 17. Here we have the second set between Renegades and Shattered Crystals. Here we have Shattered Crystals pick this time around, the Wesker, also known as the Mastermind. Here we see a Bamboozle pick, a Corrupt Intervention, Pain Resonance, and Noed again. Noed is a very interesting choice. Once again, Wesker is not a set that's particularly high, average win condition, but still, the pick of Noah just, to me, signifies a lack of confidence in the actual pick itself of securing it before the game is over. And then the Bamboozle I also find a weird pick, as there's not, honestly, a lot of tiles where the Bamboozle will really aid the Wesker. So I'm really curious as to these particular perk choices for the Mastermind here.
Yeah, I am more so a brutal strength over Bamboozle guy myself for Wesker. I just think that faster break speed is better than blocking windows. Like, sure, he has like that vault that we just saw. That's some good vault speed, and to like block the windows after is pretty nice, but it's also not that worth it for a perch slot on this guy, especially on a map like Cold Tower 1. You don't have that much tiles to block windows for. You just have your power in which you can mind game stuff pretty well. And Prick gonna be seeing that window was banned at main. Not gonna be going inside just to see that It is, as a matter of fact, a brand new dead end in a maze that you just recently solved. And now we have Bloodlust going to be greeting the pallet and not getting down, going to be taking it towards 10 now, and our first generator of the game pops.
Yeah, and I mean, the first chase is still going on. Prick doing an incredible job so far, as Matthew Cote would say. I think we've done a pretty good job so far, and this chase just going to continue at this tile. I mean, Prick having amazing check spots, but also just being very patient, I say, as they fall to the killer. I need to stop talking tonight, occasionally. Why don't you guys take over?
Yeah, the Chasm Curse is strong with you tonight, Snappy. But as I said earlier, last time around, when I signed up, I didn't really expect this match to turn into a live recreation of what a hydrogen bomb versus the coughing baby would look like. But that first chase was just kind of brutal, man. Not even getting the hit at the pallet between the tire tracks here, but in not a great spot. I mean, one gen pops, and you can only assume that like there's other gens with multiple progress. We are interrupting a gen here by 8, but then instant unhook, and that's gonna be a tunnel out onto Prick here, or maybe they might switch over the paradigm, the unhooker, but no, they will decide to continue onto Prick. Prick has a lot of resources to work around the main building, and they're going towards the main building. And you're assuming that means that all the progress that they have on generators is towards the bottom side, as you see in the bottom side gen pops, is looking very conflicting on what they want to do here. The Wesker player here, and we're going to see a Ada literally come out of nowhere. Where did she come from? Where did she materialize from? She just came out like she's the Viet Cong and she's hiding in the trees. Like, what?
Yeah, just spawning out of nowhere and gonna be giving that free tag for Kano's. Don't know how to say that name. I'm just gonna say Kano to not butcher it.
Yeah, I just avoided saying it in general.
Yeah, so to avoid butchering, I'm just gonna call him Kano, but we're still gonna be committing onto Huani here at the bottom side of the map, where all the gens are done now. So now gen progress is likely going to be at the top side of the map, while chases are brought bottom, and Huani's doing an excellent job at keeping chase where it needs to be, as that main 3 gen is definitely one that should be held, and I personally believe we are overcommitting this chase here, but it does result in the down eventually at the corner of the map, hopefully a pain res nearby, and maybe just long enough to prevent a gen popping.
I mean, we had mentioned previously that Brutal Strength is usually the favored perk to Bamboozle here, and I mean, that's kind of being showcased here. The survivors are able to just drop whatever pallets they please, and they don't have to worry too much about the repercussions coming from Wesker's tower. Quickly going to be checking the basement locker, possibly just trying to see if there was a survivor around Shack moments ago, but yeah, they're just not able to punish survivors for dropping these pallets. Usually with Wesker, with Brutal Strength, you break the pallet, you have your dashes back, but then you can kind of get a quick start after the pallet drop, and they get less distance out of it. Bamboozle, like was said before, there's just not enough windows on this map. It did get some value early game with the main building window. It cut off Prick's kind of chain to main building, but beyond that, it didn't do much more. However, that is going to be the last gen being greeted in front of Kono's face, and that is going to be the Noah revealing itself, and a chase onto Prick. I mean, they have a fresh hook that they can take here on Merlin here. They do get the hit onto Prick here, but honestly, if you're going to commit to somebody during this endgame with Noah, Prick is probably the last person you want to commit to, because they are dead on hook already. So getting them just opens up the opportunity for Merlin to be picked up, and for the survivors to make a recovery, possibly cleanse that Noah like we saw last game. I'm just not entirely sure if this is the play right now. However, we did see Huani nearby, and that is another survivor who is not fresh hook, so they are not quite the optimal target. I do believe I missed, but Prick is not dead on hook. They are just going to be second hook, one being brought to this top mid hook here. But this is just giving the survivors a bit of a chance to recover. Thankfully, they do get this hook on the Noah totem. If they can get Merlin here, if they can get this hook somewhere topside, they are in a much better position to get more stages. And I mean, they have just caught Paradigm out here. Paradigm not having much to run with here. Bamboozle going to be active on this window. They are going to have this edge map God Rock palette to play around. That is going to be dropped immediately. Without Brutal Strength, that is not going to be an incredibly fast break. That will give Paradigm plenty of distance to the next tile. And I mean, buying precious time for their teammates. Merlin still being slugged on the ground. I say as they get picked up, that is going to be Prick still on the hook, possibly going to be seeing a rescue coming in shortly. The gate does get opened, and Paradigm still playing around this TL wall. I mean, Bamboozle is going to come into play, but Paradigm making their way towards Shack. Are we going to see a hatch play? I mean, you cannot grab Paradigm here with your power. That is just going to give them the chance to get hatch. If Wani leaves here in a few moments, you have to get an M1 here.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a very intense endgame scenario here. As we know from earlier, Paradigm is a fresh hook. If you're able to confirm this with Noah, that's going to tilt the results way in your favor. But Paradigm doing an absolutely great job playing around these Godrock filler pallets, just forcing Wesker here to just break all of them. And you mentioned earlier about them trying to play for hatch, but that is a lot easier now than said. The Noah is gone. Prick and Wani was able to get Prick off the hook, and they're able to cleanse the Noah tunnel as well. And Paradigm's been thrown, but that's no damage. That's just an infection. Now it's gonna be raced between Wani and Paradigm to see who they goes for the hatch, but they're not even gonna go for the hatch. No, the Wesker players needs to opt to try and grab Paradigm, but Paradigm is playing this perfectly, dodging the first one. Can he dodge the second one? Dodges the second one. That is not gonna be any more stages for a Wesker player. Absolutely none. That's going to only be a 3-stage game heading into Renegades. This is killer. Welcome back, everyone, to Grindhouse Scrims Week 17. Here we're seeing the second game of Set 2 between Renegades and Shattered Crystals. Here we have Paradigm on the side of Renegades coming out to kill. Now, Paradigm has kind of a very tall task ahead of him. You know, a very hard win con to tie. 4 stages to win. Yeah, so he only has 4 stages, and it looks like he's about to get his first stage, as there's a Fengmin chilling just around the trees. Just chilling around the trees, waiting for the Wesker to come and freak her, I guess.
Last I checked, Feng was not Vietnamese, so she will be very much getting found. We will have the pallet stun happening, and Chase will be brought to main building, looking like smash hit, unless I am on something, but I don't believe I am. I believe that was smash hit after that pallet stun, and now bring it to the top of main building. We'll see if I was wrong. Maybe this is balance. It's not balance landing, trying to stagger, but or finish the stagger in time for the vault. But that mechanic where you can just insta-vault after falling is gone for a long time now. But we're going to see probably our first Pain Rush taking over to the top mid hook here as we skip the 11 hook, and now going to be going to the bottom side of the map, as that is likely where gens are being progressed.
Yeah, going to be taking the hook at the famous top mid hook. I mean, on Cold Tower, there's basically no more famed hook that you see survivors get brought to more often than a hook around the top mid side of the map. It's not the one quite right in front of main, but it will do just as well. And it looks like Bill trying to call Paradigm's bluff. Bill on the hill asserting dominance, not allowing the killer, just willing them against hitting them with the power, just saying no. So that is going to cause Paradigm to leave the chase just out of sheer willpower there. And this is now going to be the chase being taken onto Pump here towards the Shack side of the map, allowing the unhook to hopefully come through momentarily. This is the top mid hook. You need to get this survivor out of here as quick as possible, but unfortunately the window was not taken in time. Instead, it looks like Bill is going to be working the Shen. They almost have it done, but this time Paradigm will not be intimidated. They are going to get the hit onto Bill here and head straight back for the tunnel out.
Yeah, I believe that what Snappy's trying to say earlier is that Bill's raw aura prevented Paradigm from grabbing them off the hill. I really don't know what's going on. This is the freakiest Wesker set I've seen so far. Has been an instant grab back on to Mystic here. Was not able to reach the pallet in time to throw it to secure them for safety, but honestly, if you're into getting freaked by the Mastermind, I'm not gonna judge you for that. We're all but let's be a second hook back onto the famous top mid hook of Cold Tower, and And once again, so that's 2 stages. Just another stage in general is a tie, and then getting a 4th stage is just going to be the win for Renegades. Here we see Paradigm trying to curve around the boulder, but unfortunately, the geometry of the map said no. And he's just going to bump straight into the rock. We're going to come back to the hook, and we're going to see here Pump Buki here on the Quentin. He's going to get the stun off, but he's not going to be able to get the unhook off. If Mystic dies on this hook, then that's going to be very tragic, because obviously you're down a survivor, but then also if you're trying to preserve as many stages as possible, you'd rather have, 3 survivors up rather than... You'd rather have all 4 survivors rather than just 3. And here we see a big strength of Wesker. If a hook isn't out in the open, you can just hold your power out and just grab people away and just throw them away from the hook, literally physically making them capable of getting the unhook. But Pump Buki is going to be thrown into Paradigm and is going to be allowed to get the unhook off.
Yep,
Yeah.
and that will be a 3rd generator popping in the distance there. Still going to be going for the stun out onto Mystic. With the exhaustion being smashed hit, there's not much that she can do, and that was a very nice rebound by Paradigm, getting that 3rd stage, and they need to pick up Pump Buki soon, or else that will be the 4th stage and the set win for Renegade, and they do not pick up, so that will be the 4th hook in the win for Renegade, confirming that 2-0 victory. Now, Jade is fully infected, still has yet to find a spray. I lied, so now we're going to be checking the main generator. We see that it is currently regressing, likely due to pain res, which gives Paradigm a lot of information as to which generators are being worked.
Yeah, Snapply likes to curse the cast, Nugs likes to lie on the cast. We are just a trio of casters that do not do good stuff while on the cast. There's going to be a chase directly onto the Bill from earlier. Can Bill's aura triumph over the Master Freak? And the answer is yes. The Bill's raw aura is just going to cause the Wesker to back off. He does not have enough aura points to contest this. He is not Evbo. He cannot hit the 360 jump for the beef. He will instead settle for the chicken.
Interesting statement there as Chase is being taken back onto Pump Buki here, who had a very strong chase earlier. They did manage to delay Paradigm a bit longer. They did manage to get the unhook onto Vic, who unfortunately was the tunnel out. Now, at this point in the game, you are just playing for ego. You are just playing for the best result possible for your team. So Pump Buki does still have some pressure on them, even though the match has already been decided. If they have a very strong chase here, the survivors can still manage to claw their way back and get a strong result out of this Wesker game and show that, hey, even though the set might not have been ours to win, it was still a strong performance in the end. And Pump Buki playing around this 4 lane very expertly, but Bloodlust will come through and prove the deciding factor in this. That will be the down onto Pump Buki, and this is going to be a hook around the bottom side of the map. At this point, I'm not entirely sure where Paradigm's gens are. They did just have the main building gen pop. They do have a few gens around the top side, but I think at this point they are kind of spread out. That is going to be another use of Pain Resonance, and Paradigm going to be sniffing out their next chase here, trying to figure out which survivor is the most freaky, and I assume that is not going to be Bill, judging by the aura plays we've been seeing earlier in this game. Instead, they do activate chase against Bill. Let's see if they are able to commit it this time, or if the sheer raw power of Bill is going to scare Paradigm off once again.
This guy, Bill Kano, has been establishing dominance on Paradigm so far this game. If he was the first chase, I believe that Shattered Crystals would have won this set. I am just saying. We see Jade rotating for the unhook as Paradigm comes back and going to be continuing to commit onto Pump Buki, who is going to be taking chase toward Shack side, going to be using power to vault the pallet and try and mind game this, I would presume. Going to be swinging Pump Buki, going to be vaulting back in time, brutal strength, breaking the pallet, going to be going onto the hill, so Paradigm can't really use the power now. And now second dash, a slide and a miss. Pump Buki also establishing that aura and going to be forcing Paradigm to leave that chase.
Yeah, it's very tragic. Unfortunately, the survivors of Shattered Crystals are learning too late that if you have enough aura points available, you can actually manipulate the air curve and the way that the oxygen molecules will flow onto the map and will cause the trajectory of the Mastermind to actually slide directly past you. It's a very interesting phenomenon. We're still looking into it scientifically, but unfortunately, we didn't look into it fast enough for the Bill to be able to abuse it quite yet. He was not able to manipulate oxygen molecules as freely as Quentin has been doing so far. So we hook onto Bill, and in case you were still caring, yes, that is another fresh hook for Paradigm here on Wesker. Is going to be looking around the 7 4-lane towel. Pallet's still up on it, but we've seen people be hit and down by it with the pallet still up. Not a particularly strong pallet. We see here Pump Buki is going to go get the unhook onto Kano, and that's just going to end up being a trade. Kano is trying to run away, injured, and also still infected by the Mastermind's freak, and yeah, there's not much to do. The best case scenario for Shattered Crystals at this point is to have Jade get in chase and Kano just perhaps having a generator towards the bottom side that's still available and has some progress on it. If Jade lasts long enough, it can pop, but it's still a mute result. Like the result doesn't change. Renegades is still like very handily won this set.
Yeah, Pump Buki in the end was not quite the winner of the Game of Life here, but they are the winner of the best name having competition. Pump Buki is such a fun name to say here. And Bill, with the insane aura, is going to take the life, sticking at the tile. They are going to unfortunately go down here. I honestly thought they were going to make that vault in the end, but it was not to be. They almost eked out the last generator. That is going to be Eruption applied to it. Brutal Strength used on the pallet next door just to show, hey, I'm running the superior perk between Bam and Brutal. And that is going to be a hook right next to the gen. Never mind, going to take it back to the infamous top mid hook and probably try denying Jade any chance of getting this on hook. I mean, when you're injured and infected, it's kind of difficult to get an unhook in this scenario. You're eventually going to be fully infected, then you got to spray to avoid yourself from being hindered, and at that point you just give away your position to the killer. So kind of a rough position to be in when you're the last survivor remaining, as if being the last survivor remaining already is not a difficult enough position. Just decided to make it a bit more difficult here.
Yeah, but we do see Kano missing 2 skill checks in a row. That will be the death, and Jade choosing not to spray. Pretty smart decision to let Paradigm not know the location of Jade, but with hatch opening, barely unable to get the hatch, like probably within frames even, I'd want to say personally. But that will be the 4K1 Renegade taking these sets 2-0. This was Grindhouse Scrims week 17, and week 18, as a matter of fact, will be having 2 more matchups on Sunday amongst with our regular Thursday matchups. We will also be seeing Sunday matchups for European teams, at least more in their favor, at 2 and 4 EST. So we will see you in Grindhouse week 18.
And that's on Skippy.